Hello everyone, my name is Jasmo and today is Friday. Happy Friday everybody. Oh, happy weekend coming in. Get my little gloves on. A little chilly today, just a tiny bit little chilly. It is still November, the 17th. The 17th today. We're still doing nano. There you go. Ooh, so excited. There's a weird thing that has been happening this week where, like, on the surface I feel really just content, not and plain and subtle, but there's like this well, like almost like a little underwater spring well of just huge bubbly energy, and though my face or even voice or anything may not be reflective of that bubbling energy, how fast I talk is reflective of it. So if I talk really, really fast, that means I have a lot of energy. I didn't really recognize it until Tuesday or something. It's been really weird. Anyways, I have a group word sprint up for anyone who would like to join. You can either click the link or just listen to the stream. It'll be starting in about 8.5 minutes, but you can also use this break time as a sprint itself. Sorry. I've been highly active, but not highly active. I've been highly active in, like, I'm getting things done. I've been asking particular people if I could do their portraits for them, and so far the responses have been positive. This is for my art time in the mornings, and so I got 3 of those sketched this morning. That was really cool. I started on Morbid's cuttlefish for the sub tank down below. I got a mini commission done, but I have 2 more to do as well. One of them from scratch, and the other one is just like a coloring. Oh my god. I'm gonna laugh if the entire first part of this, no one could hear me and I was just talking away. That's the best ever. Unless it, like, just cut out. If it just cut out. Oh my god. Yeah, okay. I have a coloring commission where I'm going to be coloring some lines for someone. I have a writing contribution. I have 2 writing contributions to make. Dear God, I need to keep track of this stuff. Okay. I went and made Paintfish, my bot, a little bit more interactive. Not really, but just kind of. You can now pet and feed Paintfish and he'll say something back. I'm not entirely sure how to vary up his responses, or its responses really, since it really doesn't got a gender. Erica Drayton's going to have a 6-hour stream tomorrow because she's finally back home in LA. Erica recently lost her mother and had the funeral this last Tuesday, and she had to go from LA to back to New York from that, and now she's back home and she has decided to dedicate all of her writings to her mom. And that is wonderful. Dedicating her writings to her mom, indeed. And Tech Angel, nice. You're at 23,162 words for now. Awesome. Maybe tomorrow we can have a little write-in as Erica streams and does her writing too, because for obvious reasons, she's also not have been able to keep up on the numbers for Nano. I was gonna make a list of things I need to do, which would, let's just put it over here. Tech, we'll be there for you. We'll be there for you. Got about 5 minutes until that first 20-minute sprint starts. Okay. ladies, and portraits. There. Didn't get to write last weekend because he had things to do. Yeah, life. Oh, maybe you'll be able to catch up this weekend. Maybe life won't be so interruptive. That would be cool. Melody will... Oh no, Melody's at the PAX. She's at PAX. Okay. I'm trying to think of like other people who will be writing so you can hop in on that. Got about 4 minutes left. Until the sprint starts. There we go. Be a little bit more clear. There we go. There we go. There we go. Everybody, there we go. Yeah. And today, and until I am done, I will be reading and lightly editing my story until I've gotten all the way through it. Once I've gotten all the way through it, I will go back and seriously, like, heavily edit. Yeah. Tag Angel, all the setbacks. Yeah, yeah. Oh my god. All the setbacks. Grab a pen and paper. Grab a pen and paper. And it's not that, like, write your story with pen and paper. You can write ideas down for your story with pen and paper until you get your computer back. So you don't have to stop your thinking about your story. Good. Post this again, just in case. Oh god. Frickin' Firefox updated, and now everything is backwards and dark and weird and... Okay. Yeah, because the refresh button used to be over here. Anyways. Got about 2 minutes left until we're gonna start a word sprint. I have mail. Whose does I have mail from? Oh, it's happy ML Appreciation Day. Which means... Oh, what does it stand for? Something liaison. Crap, what does it mean? Tech Angel. So, Weekend Warrior. Weekend Warrior. Put municipal. There you go. Municipal liaison. Today is the It's the ML Appreciation Day. It's a time of the year where we take a moment to send a little extra love and encouragement and gratitude to our incredible 973-person strong volunteer team. This is from Nano. This is direct from Nano. I'm reading their thing. There it is. Municipal liaisons oversee Nano activity in their local communities. They spend months preparing, organizing, planning. There are many spreadsheets involved, all to make your Nano experience fantastic. Take some time today to thank your local ML. They are out here leaping buildings and saving people from their inner editors, and your heroic team members need a little love too. Okay. I never actually got into contact with any of my local peeps around here. I'm as isolated and loner as you can get. Yeah, damn those words with French fruits in... yes. Alright. Tech, you do as much writing as you can in about 30 seconds. And then I will start, okay, I will start reading when that goes too, so I'll read solid. I might actually keep following the 2010 reading out loud 10-minute break to save my voice, because my throat is getting a workover from it, but that's okay. Get ready.
Ding! Let the writing begin.
Let the writing begin, guys. 20 minutes, here we go. My music keeps like going up and down, real loud to real soft for me. It's so I feel like I'm shouting over it sometimes. Alright. Make sure my buttons are not scraping against things. There we go. I have no chapstick. That's okay. Chapstick is more of a nervous tick than I actually need chapstick. Yes, Tech Angel, yes I do, very much. I've not experienced or come into contact with an idea or concept like it. There you go. Okay. I have to psych myself up because reading out loud is one of those nerve-wracking things. Okay. Damn it. It's like standing on the edge of a diving board and you absolutely do not want to just even lean over. Okay. Sharp watched from a great distance as the animals in his meadow readied themselves for the coming winter. Small animals gathered their food, fixed their shelters. Larger animals helped as much as they could. He knew it was because of Polly and her ancestors. From his perch he wondered if her meddling would live on through the egg that Roxy had found. Without his mother, Sharp doubted her influence would continue on much longer, maybe a few generations more at most. There we go, that's why we're lightly editing. What Sharp was most interested in, though, were the deer. By his count, they should have left the meadows several days ago, but instead decided to stay and help. Polly's influence had a greater effect than he realized, but that was alright. He knew the deer were more traditional in their interpretation of the circle, and would only help as much as they allowed themselves the flexibility to do so, which wasn't much. His own view of the circle was most likely the purest form, but he did not push it on any of the other animals. He let them live out their days, long since convinced to recycle only those that passed by one of Polly's ancestors. Whoa, hang on. Long since to recycle only those that passed. Oh, okay. How to fix this? It doesn't read smoothly, but it does make sense. So, Sharp was long since convinced to recycle only those that died by one of Polly's ancestors. So maybe I actually need to put in died. And maybe he uses less gentle language when he thinks about these things. Because I've been trying to keep it not necessarily like just toned down, but of a gentle ease thing. And Pine Lord, hello! Thank you so much for the bits. Cheers! Okay. He let them live out their days, long since convinced to recycle only those that died by one of Polly's ancestors. That still doesn't read quite right. Hopefully it makes sense. I'm gonna underline this. Or highlight this. Or actually no, I don't have to do that. I can make a note. I can make a note. Tone down of what? Oh, just the I want to keep words more on the gentle side. I think overall I have kept words more on the gentle side. So instead of saying someone died or they got crushed and they died, it's they passed. Or we're going to their resting place instead of we're going to their grave. That sort of thing. Okay. Sorry, Starbound music. That can get turned up. Alright. She had convinced him so many years ago, yet it was rather simple to do so. As in, it was rather simple to convince him. He ate carrion any time he came across it, and it was rather abundant in the broad area of forest he called home. Even when food was scarce, it was more than enough, and he didn't interfere with how he... And it didn't interfere with how he interpreted the circle, a win-win. And Tasmacan, hello! Welcome. I hope you guys are having a wonderful day today. Or at least a better day today. A little less stressful day today. You guys can come in, chill, lurk. You can write, type, get your fingers twirling up a storm. Pine Lord, I love that. You're making a reference to turn down for what? Yes. Awesome. Remember, dense. Very dense. Mainly because I can't hear you say the words. It is incredibly hard to read inflections and tones. That's why usually people put a kappa face when they're being sarcastic after what they said. But yeah, I will reiterate, I wish there were emotes you could put before or after things that you have said that indicate the tone that you were taking. Like the Elcor from Mass Effect who always say, jokingly, that was funny, or whatever. Or with much gratitude, thank you, because they can't use their voices to express themselves. Anyways. This whole freaking paragraph is awful. His own view of the circle was most likely the purest form of it, but he did not push it on any. He did not push his belief on any of the other animals. He let them live out their days, long since convinced to recycle only those that died by one of Polly's ancestors. She had convinced him so many years ago, yet it was rather simple to do so. He ate carrion any time he came across it, and it was rather abundant in the broad area of forest he called home. Even when food was scarce, it was more than enough to sustain him, and it didn't interfere with how he interpreted the circle. A win-win. That's a little better. My lord. All right. Still, after seeing what the spring storm had done to the meadow, Sharphead made a decision of what he would do for winter. Okay, he was expecting the weather to be just as harsh as the spring, if not more so, and that meant he needed to find a less hostile place until it passed. The best way for him to do that, and to help keep peace of mind for the rest of the residents of the meadow, was to follow the deer. Only he had expected them to be well on their way. Yeah, it's okay. Sharp huffed a large sigh, his feathers fluffing out to guard against a brisk breeze. A gentle snow had already fallen, and it was going to be it was going to be the first of many. Wow, my words, I can read. He mentally argued with himself that if the deer didn't leave the next morning, he would have to encourage them to do so in as diplomatic way as he possibly could. I think there's just a whole bunch of extra letters and words in there that don't need to be, but that I will leave that for the next read through, because I usually I go through about 6 or 7 passes of reading my own stuff and editing and whatnot. The first one is just to go through, fix some spellings, grammatical errors, punctuations, maybe a few words I left out, which I usually do here and there. And then the second reading is more thorough. And then the third reading is to make sure that those changes I made in the second one were okay. And then I let it sit for a little while and then read it a 4th time and see if more changes need to be made. And the 5th reading is to make sure that all of the 4th reading's changes were alright. And the 6th reading is to finally decide if it is complete and ready. God forbid I read it again anytime in the future, because I'll be like, oh, I could do this and this and this, and it would just be a nightmare. Got about 10 minutes left in this sprint. Okay. Another sigh left him. Ever since the spring storm, he had outright avoided visiting the meadow. It was again because of Polly, since he had done the most respectful thing he could do for her when his eyes found her lifeless body, recycle her back into the circle. After doing so, he returned what remained so the rest of her could be committed back to the earth and help the next generation of plants as they were all destined to do one day. It was his mistake to attend the commemoration of the fallen. Chip's reaction to the news of Polly's death and how she had been found had a profound impact on the squirrel beyond what Sharp could understand. He was able to get a watered-down sense of what his small friend felt, but it was far more than any of them should have felt. Sharp blamed Polly, but not in a negative way. His only hope was that her influence would eventually fade away, and the thought helped him doze off for a midday nap. Okay. And how are you guys doing in chat? I know Tech Angel's typing away. Just typing away. And hey, if you want to get in on the sprint, you can do so. It is open for everybody, or you can just listen to the stream. I'll call out how much time is left every now and then. Sharp's midday nap turned into a deep sleep that left him well rested but confused when he woke again. Dark clouds covered the sky, making it difficult to tell if it was still night or becoming early dawn. The only reason he knew it was morning, I guess, was from the tracks the deer had left behind when they departed. He could see the tracks leaving the meadow and heading south. Without hesitating, he opened his wings and fell from his perch. Flying in the cold air was a bit more difficult when it was truly winter, but Sharp knew it would be worth it in the long run. I've noticed I've been using "but" a lot. That's okay. It's not okay. I'll probably change that later. Having difficulty flying would be better than starving through a season and having to resort to something that would impact his friends in a negative way. He had done well over the years to keep a good relationship with the residents he watched over, feeling it was partly his duty, while ignoring that the circle dictated that he should have done nothing to deter other predators. Thankfully, over the years, his sheer size had afforded him the luxury of not having to actively dissuade others, keeping his hypocrisy at bay. His mates would have disagreed. Sharp made sure to keep his distance while still keeping an eye on the 11 deer plodding along in the light snow. He did not want them to know he was following, so he wouldn't have to take time later to interact with them. Besides, following them was a twofold plan. He could better survive by traveling south with them, and soaring in the sky would allow him to reflect back on his life, as he often enjoyed doing. He had many wonderful memories and felt he had lived a very fulfilling life. Okay. I think this is the only character where I, actually give backstory-ish things. I also haven't, physically described anyone other than saying, this is an eagle, this is a squirrel, this is a deer. Thinking of his family, the chicks he had helped raise, the mates that he had lived with, lost, and mourned, they were his comfort for the remaining years of his life. His most recent mate, an eagle unlike any, An eagle, unlike any he had ever met, pained him the most. He was much older than she was. Her hopes of pairing up with him built upon his long life and experiences. They could do nothing about the fact that they could not have chicks together. Of course, they stayed together long enough to see if one season was simply a fluke, but when the third season rolled around and there were no eggs, she decided to leave, as much as she didn't want to. He had given her all of his blessings and wishes, sending her off to live her own fulfilling life that he knew he could not be a part of, even though he desperately wanted to be. To be? I don't know. I'm not a pro writer. I don't know what I'm doing. It was those memories that helped keep him aloft high in the sky, watching over his extended family. He hoped they had fulfilling lives as well. Anyone? I'm sure everyone. Everyone deserved nothing less, and the circle provided nothing more than the opportunity to have one. Sure. Squirrel! Hi, my name is Doug. Yes, that's a prairie dog in here. Got about 5 minutes left in this sprint. And deer scene 1. Okay. cold wind chased the fleeing deer from the meadow. The does already knew the winter was going to be just as awful as the spring, and though they wanted to leave much earlier, they couldn't leave their extended family before they knew they had given them the best chance of surviving the season. I haven't capitalized season anywhere else, so I will leave it uncapitalized. They had helped carry around the smaller animals so that they could reserve their energy in the last push to forage and build up their homes for the coming rains and snows. Stomp helped build up the shelter of the fallen trees in the middle of the meadow. Oh, in the middle of the meadow that had been created by carrying loads of branches in his antlers. All of their efforts were because of Polly. Polly. It had been more than just her influence that had brought the meadow together. Most only remembered her since her own mother had passed at a young age. It was to their benefit that her mother had taught her daughter to spread kindness and consideration among the residents of the meadow. Stomp was sure that it had been passed down from generation to generation, and he planned on paying it forward for his next generations like his sisters were already doing. Side note, probably not to the same extent that Polly did. So when I wrote that part, I had an idea or a theory that Polly, who's a Calliope hummingbird, the little bird in the corner of the screen, that her family line was pretty much cursed. They were cursed with kindness, and they all died young. If they had that if they were able to learn and help pass on that kindness. And it was that kindness that killed them because they became careless, or it wasn't really careless, or trust something about that. I didn't really flesh it out, and I never mention it elsewhere in the story, but that's like the deep, dark secret of Polly's family that Hummer gets to avoid because his mom was already dead before he hatched. So he didn't get the kindness learnings from her. So everyone else in the meadow has that kindness to a way lesser extent than what Polly had. Which doesn't matter at all, I just like talking about it, apparently. Stomp brought up the rear of the small herd, counting heads, ears, and tails to make sure everyone was still with them. An old doe, Perk, led them to a place she knew well that would be safe for the season. Yeah, there we go. She was, in essence, their leader and had the most life experience out of all of them. In fact, all of the other does were her daughters and granddaughters, and Stomp was her youngest son. It was his third winter, but the first 2 seasons had been relatively mild and he hadn't really experienced hardship yet. He had a feeling that wasn't going to be the case for them. I guess this time? I don't know how to past tense this time. But sure, why not? Got about 1:30 left in the sprint. Hoofed feet plodded along at a steady pace, heading south to warmer climes. They had been south before, but not as far as Perk was planning. Each doe followed diligently, their own ears perked for any sounds they needed to be aware of. Oh, I'm gonna have trouble today. Stomp was more so aware because he had deemed himself the protector of his family from a young age. Usually he would have left the herd a season or 2 previous, but to him it seemed natural to stay. The rest of his family had no qualms because he had kept them safe, especially the young ones from coyotes and getting lost in bad weather. Weather and coyotes weren't the only things Stomp worried about. His mother or his sisters hadn't really prepared the youngest does for the journey other than letting them know they would be traveling a lot. They had yet to learn of the real dangers of larger predators and hunters. He had seen them before: wolves, bears, and people. People were his largest concern because they could hunt them successfully from a distance in silence. He had seen the sharp and shiny sticks stuck in trees and dirt. Some had narrowly avoided him and his family. 20 seconds left. We'll be all right, he reassured himself. As long as they were vigilant, they would survive the season easily. All of them had eaten well over the spring when the storms had passed, and even better in the summer when food was most abundant.
Ding! Time's up!
Time's up! Ooh, where's my refresh button? Time is up. Yep. When it was time to leave, they were all practically fat, healthy, and happy. The best case scenario to keep their place in the circle a bit longer. Very few predators would actually hunt them because of how healthy and vibrant they were. Only the desperate or the people would be a real hindrance. Okay. And you don't have to put your word count in if you don't want to. Tech, awesome. Progress. Got some progress in there. Alright, we will start the next group sprint at the 35-minute mark of the hour. It will only be 15 minutes long, but after that, all the rest of the sprints will be 20 minutes long, and all the rest of the breaks will be 10 minutes long, which there should be 6 more? 6 more sprints. 2 o'clock gets to... Yeah, there should be 6 more sprints after this one. Jesus, that's a lot. Okay. People. Stomp followed along at the steady pace the rest set, his mind mainly thinking of the people and how dangerous they would be. His vigilance slipped when they took breaks to graze, his thoughts churning out scenarios of what he would do should they come across a hunter. Why hadn't Perk prepared the young does for what he knew was ahead? He felt like he had to start the conversation when they had started to move again, but held his thoughts. His mother usually knew what was best for them, and he trusted her judgment. He trusted her because she had seen him and his sisters, as well as their daughters, through the season safely and wisely. The bucks she found were mild-tempered but firm enough in their resolutions that together they produced smart, resourceful offspring that still had a touch of mischievousness about them. He remembered playing games with his sisters until the larger concerns of survival took over. Still, when his sisters had daughters from similar bucks as their mother, there were young does again to play games with, which he did so gladly. Their favorite game as they traversed the hills and pine forest was I Spy, though they played it quietly and only amongst themselves. Stomp did pitch in from time to time, but his mind was still mostly consumed by keeping an eye and ear out for danger. Voice. Days passed, the cold wind from the west and north still chasing them along. It was warmer within the forests, but also more dangerous because of possible ambushes. To help curb the chance of getting spotted by something that meant them harm, they kept to the steep sides of the hills and traveled between the flatter grounds above and below. If something wanted to claim one of them, they were more than welcome to try their own shaky footing against the deer's impeccable balance and accuracy. They kept to their safe ways of traveling until they reached a particularly wide stretch of open ground. Open ground, there you go. Trees could be seen on the other side, but the distance to cross to get to them was the largest they had to traverse yet. Oh, where am I? Perk stood at the edge of their trees, sniffing the air for clues. Her eyes told her there was nothing to worry about. Her ears confirmed what her eyes told her. Her nose, thankfully, also confirmed there was nothing odd or to fear from the open space, at least near their edge. She was content enough to lead her 10 charges out into the open. Excuse me.
Ding! Let the writing begin.
I don't know what's up with my audio. I do apologize. I haven't even touched my mic. I don't know what's going on. I might see if I muted it for only 2 minutes now. Oh my god. Only 2 minutes. Anyways, you guys got a little less than 14 minutes on this sprint right now. Thank you for catching the muteness, though. Thank you. Okay. Get your thoughts out of your head. Stomp heard the words of his sister Buck and listened to them. As much as he worried about not paying attention, that was exactly what was happening. I'm here, he replied. They were still plodding along across the open area, all ears perked up and listening, even the young ones. He was proud that they were naturally wary, and it gave him some peace of mind, enough that he still held his thoughts about forewarning them of the dangers they could and most likely were going to face. 13 minutes left-ish. In a tightly packed line, the deer made it across the open field at a trot, only slowing down when they reached the dense tree line on the other side. Pines grew close to one another, but only along the edge of the open area. Once past the first line of trees, their pace opened up under the boughs, creating a dark and muffled, space. Yeah, I guess. The space, yes. Okay, once past the first line of trees, the space opened up under the boughs, creating a dark and muffled environment. Pine needles covered the floor, little underbrush grew, and the land continued to be flat rather than sliding back into hills and ravines. Now I'm gonna be paranoid about my audio going out. Yay. Beneath the deer was a large... Whoa, there we go. It was entirely new to everyone except Perk. She had been there before, admired how peaceful it was, and was thoroughly happy that her family finally had a chance to experience one of her most favorite places. Few, if any, predators lived in the area because there was very little prey due to lack of underbrush and food. It stayed that way until the land started to slope upwards, where their hoofs were treading was an ancient volcano taken over by nature once again. Or long taken over by nature. There we go. At the top of the slope, Perk looked down, waiting for her family to join her along the edge of the bowl. Beneath the deer was a large, wide bowl with gently sloping sides. At the very bottom was a small pond surrounded by grasses and bushes. Trees gave the water its space, but still provided enough shelter from the sky if needed. Alright, Pine Lord. Good luck. Hope your computer still works after you reset it. I'll be here for several more hours. To the new deer, the place looked untouched, even by other animals. The trees appeared ancient, the grass wise, and the water timeless. While other animals had used the small oasis in their travels, none resided at it permanently other than some frogs. It was an odd place of respect that acted as a resting place for those traveling during their migrations. What Stomp appreciated the most were the colors. The bark of the trees was dull, ashen, like their fur. The pine needles and grass were vibrant like their home meadow. The water was entirely clear. They could see the bottom of the pond from where they were. It was beautiful. It was magical. Slowly they made their way into the bowl, naturally taking care where they stepped so they could disturb the ground the least, even the young does. Stomp had to take extra care because of his antlers and some low-hanging branches. Whoa, at the edge of the bowl. Because of his antlers. Stomp had to take extra care because of his antlers and some low-hanging branches in his way at the edge of the bowl. That makes a little more sense. Twice he nearly got them caught, and twice he calmly navigated his way around them. The last thing he wanted to do was ruin the mood and the tone the small meadow had set. It was one of peace, of reverence, of safety. He didn't want to turn it into a joke or be disrespectful. At the bottom of the bowl, standing in tall grass, Perk gathered her family around her. "This is a place my grandmother took our family when the winters were most harsh," she told them. "It wasn't where we ultimately stayed, but it is a traditional place of rest. There aren't predators here as far as we know. We've never seen tracks or indications of any. Only deer and other small animals have been here." The family looked around and took note of just how silent it was around them. Insects could barely be heard with the faint songs of birds from far away. "Why don't we stay here?" Tip, a young doe, asked. It seemed like the perfect place other than its small size. "The snow eventually comes," Perk answered. "It's also too small. It would support 1, maybe 2 deer if the season was warm enough, but not all of us. We still have to keep heading south, so in the meantime, rest your legs, get some sleep, and eat as much as you like. We still have a long way ahead of us." Her family nodded, their eyes shining with contentment and hoofs carrying them happily off to do as they were told. Resty time. Got about 8 minutes left in this sprint. Okay. Morning came, turned into day and night again. Each evening the flocks landed, each morning they took off once again. The cycle was less tedious, made by Hummer's many stories about his family, namely his brothers. It helped pass the very boring time for one leg, who was more than happy to listen. This is where, yesterday I was like, oh my god, I need to put in the other part somewhere because there's a break, yay! So I think I read like the first paragraph or 2 before doing that, so I'll be rereading it because I don't know where I left off and I don't want to skip anything because it would be weird. Other geese were also grateful for the stories whenever they flew behind one leg. Everyone else but the youngling had made the migration journey before at least once, and passing the time was somewhat of a chore. Span didn't really want to encourage the distraction though, because that meant no one was paying attention to the ground, the landscape, the signals that they needed to see in order to know where to land. A few times he mentioned to Hummer that paying attention was going to become important, which quieted him down, but as soon as Span took a different position in the flock, Hummer was chatting again. Ahem. One afternoon, One afternoon, after Hummer needed a small intermission for his voice, the sky changed suddenly. Suddenly. Clouds rolled in from the direction they were headed, creating a wall that reached from the ground to well over their heads, much higher than they could fly. Its girth was rapidly expanding it to either side, leaving the flocks no choice. An order of fly through was given, along with words of encouragement being passed around. It was another big storm, like the one they had flown through to get to the meadow. While no one was lost or injured during that storm, it was not a fun experience. One leg was not looking forward to going through it again. The first one had been hard enough for his young wings to handle. The growing storm ahead of them looked worse than the last. Everyone pulled their formations in especially tight. Everyone pulled in their formations especially tight, letting the lead geese cut them a path. Rain erupted in large drops before they hit the wall of clouds. Strong winds picked up. The sky sounded angry at them for not landing and waiting out the gathered energy until it passed. "We should land," one leg called through the gusts of wind that carried his words away. Hummer had no words for what was happening. He had no choice or no say about the storm at all, and his deepest fears came to life. Stories of the storm that hit in spring that had ended so many lives prematurely plagued his overactive imagination. He could not bear to think of losing anyone close to him, or anyone at all, to anything or anyone. I'm getting stuffy. Scary tales of that night passed, leaving trees in shambles, some tipped over entirely, and all of the debris crept into his rare nightmares. A similar storm was gobbling them up, as if it were a giant eagle. The voice is struggling. The voice struggles. Got about 4.5 minutes left in this sprint. Honks rang out through the rain until lightning flashed, followed by deafening thunder. Hummer could feel the vibrations in his chest, making him worry that they could stop his heart at any moment. One leg honked back to let his flock know he was still with them, though he could be seen behind Span. It only became worse. Flashes scared the large birds. Vibrations from the thunder rattled them enough to tilt their course. A particularly strong gust carried them all upwards, straining their wings to their absolute limits. One leg felt like his wings would tear off at the shoulders, but his only worry was about Hummer and the other hummingbirds. He could barely feel the pull in his feathers that his small friend was still with him. Boom. Oh god. This is the only thing I'm worried about. Reading. Boom! Sounds. All at once the world was chaos. The flock was scattered by a lightning bolt, then pushed farther away by the following thunder and winds. One leg tried to keep everyone in view, but the wind tossed him around like a bobbing nut fish were trying to suck down below the surface. Okay. Oh, come here, you. Come here. His head spun. Up was down. Down was sideways. He couldn't think. Couldn't right himself. His wings pulled in so they wouldn't get ripped away from him as he struggled to make sense of what was going on. Hummer could only hang on for his life. He twisted this way and that, gravity and other forces trying to part him from one leg. He refused to let go of the feathers in his feet as much as he refused the growing sensation that the migration was the right thing to do. He would not let go. He would not lose his family. Twirling through the air did little to help Hummer hold on, let alone one leg's feather. He could feel something slipping, but it wasn't his feet. Wind and slapping rain suddenly tossed Hummer around like his brothers were playing catch with a pebble in the treetops. The size of the drops alone tried to drown him until his wings snapped into action. Eyes frantically searched for the giant body of his friend and saw him disappear into a cloud bank. Before he lost sight of him, Hummer dove after, dodging rain and cutting through the wind better than he could have hoped for. Honks were the only indication that one leg was still nearby. He was aware his small friend had been thrown off due to the pain from where his feather had once been. He relied on his training and instincts to guide the little bird if he could even manage with the wind. He wasn't very hopeful until a small, dark dot flitted through the vapors that surrounded them. About 1:30. One leg stuck his head out as far as he could without worrying about the wind breaking it. Wow. Hummer took the cue and rushed forward, the wind thwarting him once, twice, again pushing him to the side until they were spiraling together. Cut down, one leg called. Hummer didn't even think. He simply dove with the power of his wings, carrying him faster than the water could fall. He dove and dove, then finally glanced up and saw the dark shadow of a round, bulbous body falling in his direction. He slowed his fall until he could sink his feet back into one leg's feathers, a secure hold finally binding him back to his friend. Less than a minute left in this sprint. One leg dropped through the clouds until he broke. The wind's letting up, but the rain still pelting him. He shook his head long enough to realize that he wasn't flying. He was falling. Instinctively, he twisted his body around until he was just right, then opened his wings, air slapping against them until he was no longer falling, but wasn't exactly gliding either. Treetops grew too close too quickly, waving their leafed branches in the wind, hiding a stream that one leg narrowly avoided in his final swoop to land. His feet skipped, sputtered, stubbed, then finally slid along grass until they stopped. Chest heaving, he started heading for the nearest shelter he could see. Progress was slow from the wind constantly turning him around, making him frustrated enough to honk loudly.
Time's up.
Time is up, and that is also my stand-up break time. I'm gonna get up, stretch, rest my voice. And if you have been watching or writing for a while, I highly encourage you to do the same. At least get up and stretch, get that blood flowing, and I will meet you guys back here in about 3 minutes. Alright, we are back. Thank you for sticking with me through that short break. Hang on. Hang on. Still hear me? Yeah, okay. Get in there. Get in there. There we go. I'm checking my connections of my mic to my computer. Because I actually have my mic plugged in through an extension cable, a USB extension cable. It doesn't need to be. But I think I did that just because it was the easiest thing to do at the time. Because I already had one out for one of my cameras for my my traditional art. So I could easily switch between the two cameras, between my painting table and my workbench. Anyways. Let's close. Let's refresh. Next sprint will be at the top of the hour. Nice. Nice, guys. Some progress. Any progress is good progress. So at the top of the next hour, 20 minutes. There we go. We've got about 5 minutes until that sprint starts. And I think I am gonna rest the voice. I don't know what I'm gonna do while resting the voice. I could read silently, but that would be kind of weird, just leaving chunks of it out. Who knows? Okay, I got plenty to drink. Bright and sunny it is today. Just like... Maybe on the next break, if I lose sound again, or if I lose my mic again, I'll just flat out plug it into my computer instead of the extension cable thingamajig. Got about 3.5 minutes until the next sprint starts. I'll just read. One Leg's honking caught the attention of an animal that had taken shelter under a nearby bridge. He had heard the sound before and hoped that a flock hadn't gotten caught in the storm. Four paws shuffled out his old body into the rain he barely noticed through his thick fur. Sure enough, there was a single goose trying to walk across the field, his head turning and then tucking when he caught sight of the bridge. Okay. Rex let out a gentle bark that tried to sound like a honk so he could help guide the poor bird in. He kept barking until he could see that he was being heard. "This way," he finally yelled when the goose was close enough. It raised its head, but didn't hesitate. It beat its webbed feet against the ground until they were safely under the bridge. Reading is difficult today. My eyes don't want to do the thing. My brain doesn't want to accept what my eyes are seeing, apparently. Thanks, One Leg huffed. He didn't care that a dog, an animal he had been warned about, had helped them out of the rain. He was much larger than the furry animal and was sure he wouldn't pose a problem. Dan, the furry animal. I almost missed that. Name's Rex, the dog offered, his long furry body shaking the excess water out. One Leg did the same but gently so that Hummer wouldn't get bounced around too much. One Leg, the goose dipped his head, and this, he paused until he felt his feathers move, is Hummer. The small bird peered over his friend's shoulder and looked at what could have been a very large prairie dog with an extra long nose. You'll be safe here until the storm passes. Rex turned around and walked until he was in the middle of the bridge, farthest away from the rain. One Leg followed him, eyes glancing around at various things he assumed Rex had gathered. You live here? The goose asked, his feet finally stopping so he could plop down and rest. Aye, that I do, he answered back in a voice that sounded too old for his body. Home sweet home. He turned around on a rug and then sat on it. What are you two doing out here in the storm? Migrating, Hummer answered, sitting on the edge of something he had never seen before. It was like a hollow log, only more round and reflective like the water in a calm pond, which is to say he's sitting on a tin can. Storm caught us off guard, One Leg confirmed. I think we got separated from the rest of the flock. His head dipped a bit in thought. My God, the flock had certainly not followed them through their plummet. He hoped they were all right. They'll be fine, Rex assured them. You feathered folk are smart. They'll either take shelter on the ground or get through it. You two know where you're going? If we get lost, One Leg recited, fly towards the setting sun until we arrive at endless water, then keep the setting sun on our right. Look for other flocks. They'll know where we're going. Ah, good. Rex's eyes smiled at them. He kept smiling until a thought occurred to him.
Ding! Let the writing begin.
20 minutes, guys, on the clock. There you go. Get your typing in. You'll want to head southwest from here. The mountains to the east are rough, I hear. Going mostly around them should help. Do you get a lot of migrating bird visitors? Hummer asked. Aye, quite a good number stop, I hear. You missed a group from yesterday, same as you. They left before the storm hit, heading southwest like I mentioned. He nodded, his eyes drooping a bit before a large yawn gaped his mouth open enough that Hummer could see all of his sharp, discolored teeth. Get some rest. The storm will last quite a bit longer. If you get hungry, I can get you something. His nose pointed to a dirt pile that had small plants growing in it. Thanks, Hummer and One Leg said together. They looked at each other for a moment before deciding that sleeping would pass the time fastest so they could take off as soon as possible. Here's a thought. I want to illustrate parts of the story. Just like a scene. I'm 32 pages in without adding the other stuff. And I haven't had like... Oh, well yeah, I have. I haven't had any like pings of inspiration of what scenes that I would like to make. The bridge one... Maybe? Like, I haven't described, like, what's under the bridge in any of the detail that I imagine it in. I imagine it to be, like, it almost looks like where a whole bunch of homeless people live, except all those homeless people are animals. So, so they don't have, like, yeah, well, yeah, basically that. It's cluttered with stuff. It has a rug, it has some, like, piles of dirt, things growing out of the dirt, there's some trash in there. My idea was that Rex was a dog who lives in a house, or he has a house, but he doesn't really live there, but the people give him food, and he instead lives under this bridge, and he pulls trash from the water whenever he finds it, or he cleans up the banks, and he just, like, keeps it piled underneath the bridge. And it's not like a deep river going underneath the bridge, it's like a small creek. You could probably wade out into it up to your knees or something, not totally deep, but that would or what I would imagine for this dog, Rex. That would be his place in the world, essentially. Is cleaning out this creek of trash, and he lives under the bridge and gets fed by a nearby house. Oh, that is so tart after coffee. Oh, no. I'll get some lemonade. Oh, that is so tart after my sweet chocolate coffee. Okay. Dripping water gently woke the two birds early the next morning. This might be where I put another set of scenes, or the other scenes. I don't know. I'm gonna highlight this in a more noticeable color and do some scrolling. See if there's a break anywhere. Not really. Is this when they finally make it to, like, San Francisco? Probably. Got about 15 minutes left in this sprint. Word win? Yeah. Having so many choices, narrowing it down is difficult. You could work on several ideas, like pick your top 3 or 4 or 5, and just start writing. And when you get stuck on one, go start writing on another one. That might help, may help, I don't know. So that's definitely a break. And oh, let's actually find out what the other parts are. So part 2 is the blizzard. Okay, let me come back up here. Watch your eyes. Aha, okay. I think this would be an okay place to put this. One, it's not very long. Or top 9. Yeah, that's what you narrowed down so far, is top 9. Oh god. There we go. Dude. I like the first one. I like the Magipunk. Okay. The Shatterstone feels like it could be a D&D campaign, and you can probably even write it like one. Yeah, you even said based on a tabletop RPG setting, yeah. Oh, Wordwin, that's true. That's true. If you don't want to focus on stories, or even if those are stories that you'll be focusing on, that would open up a ton of options. Excuse me, hiccups. Hiccups incoming. There might be a couple more. Sorry if it's startling. It's startling for me. Okay. That was part 2. Part 3. That was a long one. Okay. Yes. These won't always be in the same order. Haha. Actually, that's not a bad idea. Okay. Yes. Yes. Okay. That's really short. That is really ridiculously short. Okay, that's okay. We'll see how it goes. Oh, just two. Got about 10 minutes left in this sprint. Okay. Okay, so they're sleeping underneath the bridge. But, okay, lots more scrolling. Where did we... Not too long. Okay. I don't know how that will go. Most of the residents of the meadow gathered to see the deer off for their travels. Oh, crap. No, that's okay. Maybe. This is the bad thing about writing the different parts in different documents. Ooh, I might have to... Oh, God. I might have to put different things in different areas. After the birds left. And then they were seeing the deer out, except... Got about 8 minutes left in this sprint. Crud. Maybe I need to color code these. Because wait, the deer, they left. They left. This should be before the deer actually leave. This should be before the deer actually leave. Oh god. Okay. But where to put it? Where did the deer leave? Have they left? Okay. No, they haven't. Okay. Okay, so there's that. Did I not put in... That was a mistake. Again. Got about 6 minutes left in this sprint. Just... Okay. Watch your eyes. Describe a little better the geese are turning squirrel boys. Credit. Should be another credit. Meadow scene 1. Okay. Last of the deer were preparing to leave. And then that. And then Sharp is watching them leave. And then this would technically go here? Did that actually take the... Yeah, it did. Okay. And I already cut it out of the other place, so it won't be in here twice. Okay. Because, like, the meadow scene 1, 2, 3, like, I don't have an actual order for them. This is just, like, to tell me that I have already copy and pasted the first meadow scene into the story. Jesus Christ. Things and such and things. I need to actually read through this. Okay. So it's gonna be all sorts of jumbly. All sorts of jumbly. Which is my bad. But I am gonna let my voice rest, so I'm gonna read silently. Pretty much, Tech. Pretty much. Misplaced. Oh. Misplaced. And it's mainly because I wrote, like, the extra side parts that weren't about the birds, just in pieces. They had no order to them. I didn't actually know where they were going to go in the story, if at all. Oh, that's for you! That moment you misplaced a piece of paper that has all the ideas on it. Oh, dear. Oh, dear. You'll find it. Don't worry, you'll find it. It might be behind the desk. Probably under the desk. It could have, surprisingly, slipped into a drawer if your desk has drawers. Paper can be tricky that way. That's actually happened. Because there's just enough space that if the paper, like, bends around the desk just right, it just goes whoop into the drawer. Like a jerk. Wow, yeah, I wrote these way out of order. 2 minutes left. 2 minutes in this sprint. Oh, I found it. Oh, good. Good, good, good. Got about a minute left in this sprint. The sun is bright outside. Ten seconds.
Bing! Time's up.
Time's up. Got about a 10-minute break now. Thingy-jigs, I'll refresh, check in on that soon. Okay. Yeah, I probably, most likely do live in a different state. I don't think I've met anyone on Twitch who lives in the same state as I do, though I do know there are other streamers who live here. I just haven't met them before. And I live in the potato state. At the half hour, we'll have another 20-minute sprint. There's a 2 in there, I swear. There's a 2, 0, 2, then a 0. There we go. Boop. Boop. Copy that. Paste that. And I think my entire state is in the same time zone. Or has the same time zone all across it. I think. So you, technically, you would have to be south and to the west of where I live. Or at least to the west. Okay, we got a little less than 8 minutes before the next sprint starts. Okay. That's better. That's better. Okay. already read through that. Find a better analogy, please. Let's see. Puppy. Okay. And then it's deer scene 2. Okay. Anybody? Alright. Alright, yep. Sorry, many distractions. Mini, not many, many. Note, this guy. All good, all good, all good. Okay. Perk let her family stay at the little meadow for a few days before urging them to move on. She could smell the change in the weather and the snow was headed their way. She already knew the white stuff would be ahead of them since they still had some low mountains and foothills to traverse, but it would hopefully be light enough to let them pass through instead of wasting time trying to circumnavigate it. Big words. They made excellent time leaving the meadow behind. Everyone was refreshed and exuberant enough that they decided to trot along to stay ahead of the dreaded weather. She was glad they could and was confident that everything would be fine. Everything was fine for several more days of travel. The young ones played their games, the older deer kept their senses on alert for dangers, and the sky cooperated for them. It wasn't until they reached a particular mountain range that their feelings changed. Wordwind. So much backlog. Got about 4 minutes until we start our next sprint. Wordwind, if you don't mind my asking, how do you charge your clients for written works? Because I've had, like, years ago, one guy wanted me to write him a story, and he paid by the word. Starbound music fits the story well. It does. It does. I was just wondering, like, do you charge by the word? Like, each word? I don't know how writers do that. Because it was something... It felt like it was ridiculously small. It was like 0.0025 cents per word, or 0.025 cents per word. I'm just curious. Don't have to answer it. It's totally fine. I don't mean to pry. Really? Okay. I guess like per person it would vary, or it could vary. That's neat. I'm gonna find something out really quick. Just a quick. Was it 0.0025? Or just 0.025? I'm trying to think. Okay. It probably was. It probably was 0.0025. Sorry, the thought just came up. It's the only time I've ever wrote anything for anyone. Yeah. And it didn't go so well. Not that my writing didn't go so well, it was the topic that I wasn't comfortable with at the time. Okay. My lemonade tastes weird. I'm gonna wait to keep reading. Ah, since at the time Fur was all about $5 charges. I see. I see. Got about a minute and a half left until the next sprint starts. Okay, that's where we are. But now you usually do PayPal, or you did since it's been almost a year. Okay. 1 minute until we go. Until go time. I'm curious. I guess no, I can do the math. Okay. Get ready. Are you ready? I'm ready. Get some sprints done. For me, I guess it's in reading sprints now. How much can I read and edit until the next, until the timer comes down or turns off or whatever. 10 seconds till go time. 4, 3, 2, 1.
Ding! Let the writing begin.
Let the writing begin, guys. Go! Something felt off about the trees in the woods. Perk knew the area would be burned and had witnessed the new growth over her years, but something was very different. It was far too quiet, but in an ominous way. Birds weren't chirping or singing. Insects were quiet. The air smelled familiar, yet... Stomp looked down at the ground very closely. They had been following a larger, well-worn trail on the steep mountainside that looked as if it had been made by elk over the season. Interspersed between the large hoof prints were startlingly, there you go, large paws. He had never seen prints that large before and let out a warning huff to the does in front of him. Perk saw the prints just as her son warned them. They were wolf prints, and there were more than one. From experience, she knew they traveled in large packs, but also that if they were following an elk trail, they would not be interested in the deer unless they did not catch the elk. She slowed down, then stopped altogether to listen, her family doing the same. Everyone listened. She looked back to make sure they were paying attention to her and their surroundings at the same time. Wolves are in the area. They look to be tracking an unfortunate elk. Be on your guard. If you see a wolf or other animal you do not recognize, do not panic. Listen to me and follow. Do as I do and we will stay safe. Understood? Her family nodded in response, the small does feeling the tickle of fear for the first time. As one, they moved on, treading carefully and as silently as they could. No one could smell the danger yet because there wasn't even a breeze. Perk and Stomp both hoped they would find the wolves sooner rather than later so they could put the predators behind them. 18 minutes left or so. Up over a hilltop and down a saddle the family traveled, ever vigilant. They still kept following the tracks so they knew where the danger would come from. It made the young ones more nervous, but their mothers kept them calm and a touch distracted by playing another game of Song Hoofs. Song Hoofs. A game where they tried to make a rhythm as they walked. They had to keep it quiet, but it was enough to take the edge of fear off for them. Stomp was the first to catch a light breeze, the scent of danger carried upon it. He huffed a warning again so the others could catch the scent. Indeed, it smelled of wolves and blood. Wolves and blood. Gently now, Perk bade all of them. They slowed their walking so they could pay extra special attention. Ears swiveled around, eyes followed shadows and leaves moving in the growing breeze. They were downwind of the threat, but they were also moving closer to it. Perk didn't veer from the path only because she also smelled blood. Oh, that's right. Red water, because blood. I guess. I was trying to get some weird animal vernacular in the story. And I only used blood one other time, so... red water. Smelling it meant the wolf pack had been successful and also that they would not need to hunt other food right away. Her eyes landed on the furry bodies first. Several large wolves were gathered in a circle, their heads down, the sounds of eating echoing off the trees and rocks. Lapping, crunching, all the things that made Perk shiver were made worse for the younger does who had never witnessed such a sight or sounds. "Stay calm," she told them gently. "Do not fright. As long as we are calm, they have no reason to give chase." She bobbed her head gently, the line of their bodies in full sight of the wolves if they cared to look. I guess as they passed, if they cared to look. There we go. Just to make it a little bit more clear is that the wolves caught the elk just off of the trail that the elk was on. Maybe like 10, 20, probably like 20 or 30 feet off the trail. Okay. One did care to look. A dark gray head lifted from its meal, a long pink tongue stained red, licking as much of its jowls as it could reach. Its deep brown eyes knew what it saw when the deer walked quietly by. More food. But they all had the food they needed. They all had the food they already needed. The adults that were present couldn't even hope to eat all of what they had caught, and so its head bowed back down to continue its work. Stomp gently nudged the young ones in front of him to keep them moving. Their eyes had locked onto the confusing, gruesome sight. A large male elk was lying on the ground as if it was sleeping, but its eyes were open, tongue hanging out of its mouth. If there had been no off-putting scent, the girls would have thought the wolves were simply licking the elk to help make it feel better. They shuddered continuously as they passed and continued to do so until they were far from the pack. After crossing the wolf pack, the young does became permanently nervous. Stomp and his sisters did what they could to distract them with their little games, but whenever they took a break, there was a new, ever-present fear for them. He started to regret not bringing up the subject of forewarning and preparing the young does before they left their home meadow. Perk. Stomp approached his mother, determined to convince her to tell them what still lied ahead of them in their journey. Stomp, she replied, chewing on a bit of grass. Her ears twitched in curiosity. Her son had always been nothing but vigilant and helpful for their journey, but the look in his eyes told her something was wrong. Okay. Okay. I think we should tell them what we still have to face before we actually do. Prepare the younger ones for what lies ahead. He set his jaw firmly, already knowing what his mother's response would be. That's for later, she told him. He didn't move as she thought he would. Oh, okay. He didn't, move on as she thought he would. Her children had always listened to her. That should have happened in the meadow before we left, he stated, taking a step forward. His tone was still even and calm because he really wasn't upset, only worried. If we don't tell them about the dangers ahead, one of them could panic, even Buck. Buck was the most solidly built and defensive out of his sisters, but surprises always flustered her more. If we tell them now, they will only worry the entire time. They should enjoy the journey, his mother replied gently. Not if it will kill them, he said in a lowered voice. Perk huffed at him and his brazen words. Her mother and her grandmother had always told the family the dangers after they had took their first migrations. It was to let the little ones experience everything with raw, genuine responses, and after they were safe, then the elders would explain what happened and answer questions that always came up. Not everyone always made it to their destination, and the ones that completed the journey didn't exactly receive an advantage for the next time, because any advantage they gained was from experiences and not preparation. Ooh, sorry, ahem. If we did that, we would be taking the fairness of the circle away from those that need us. Away from those that need us, yeah. She stood firm, her tone even. She believed what she said for the simple reason that it helped keep their population to a more sustainable level. If she had forewarned all of her offspring and their offspring when they needed to head further south than usual, animals would have gone hungry. She purposefully did not let them know of the danger so that the circle would take its natural course. Okay. We are also not birds, she reminded him. Our families are smaller in number, but larger in physical size. If we were to take away the fairness, then our numbers would overtake the food faster than it could grow. Overtake our food faster than it could grow. Got about 10 minutes left in this sprint. Stomp sighed. She was right. He knew she was right because he had experienced it himself. His mother hadn't prepared him or his sisters for other more gentle seasons, and it gave them the life experience they needed to survive beyond those seasons. Some of his siblings fell to predators. Huh. Hang on. That's broken. It's borked. It's borked. Okay. His mother hadn't prepared him or his sisters for other more gentle seasons, and it gave them the life experience they needed to survive beyond those seasons. Some of his siblings had fallen to predators, though. One to disease, and a few nieces and nephews didn't make it to see their first winter. It was all part of the circle, something that Polly was aware of, but her kindness, her meddling, had changed the meadow they lived in. It had certainly changed his own views, and it was why he was trying to argue with his own mother. Okay. Borked. It's not borked. There's pieces missing. Okay, I think that's all it needed. Got about 8 minutes left in this sprint. I'm sorry. His head bowed low, his antlers suddenly feeling very heavy. It's all right, Perk cooed, not cooked at him. Cooed at him. She walked over and nudged his neck. I know that Polly had good intentions, and I didn't interfere when she started spreading her kind words. I was going to let you and your sisters figure out what was best for you. Stomp looked up at his mother, her words seeming to contradict themselves. I know you would eventually interpret her words in such a way that was still helpful to others, but not too much. We all have to help keep the circle balanced, but there is some wiggle room within that balance. She smiled with her eyes at her son. His troubled and worried look eased into a form of contentment. She was glad they had spoken. She had been meaning to bring the subject up after Polly's death, but wasn't sure how to do it in a meaningful way. Or just how to. In a meaningful and constructive way. Now, go play with your nieces so they can be properly tired out for the evening. Okay. Okay. Yeah, that's a really short interjection for Sharp here. Not much excitement followed the deer through their travels other than Sharp's faint shadow they never noticed. Most of the times it was because of the trees they moved through, but even on open ground they tended to only look for land predators instead of aerial ones. Not that they needed to worry about them. Land predators had spotted them along the way, Sharp's eyes spotting them long before the deer would have ever had a chance, but never gave chase, keeping the excitement to a minimum. The only reason they hadn't been chased or startled was thanks to their overall health as a group. The warmer seasons had been kind to them and their food supply, giving them the best possible chance of surviving through the winter and any predators they happened across. Sharp appreciated the balance nature had found for the deer family. He also appreciated the abundance of food he found along the way. Not one day had he gone hungry by the time the herd came across a wolf pack and their fresh kill. While Sharp hadn't eaten that particular day, he wasn't in any rush to do so, though the thought of a very free and simple meal was very appealing. He flexed his willpower and let the deer get rather far ahead of him before gliding down and landing on a tree just above the feast. One wolf noticed and looked up at him with unconcerned eyes. It had been the same wolf that looked at the deer, silently urging them to move on, though he doubted that they noticed the gesture. He was about to give the same gesture to the eagle when his mate also looked up. He deferred to her and returned to eating his fill. "You're welcome to whatever is left," she called out to Sharp. The rest of her pack quickly glanced up to see what she was talking to, seeing that it was a simple bird didn't concern them enough to stop eating. Stuffy nose again. "Most kind," Sharp replied. He fluffed his feathers a bit, but still gave her a nod to acknowledge her kindness. It did not disturb him to watch or smell or listen to the pack eat. He simply settled in and waited for them to be finished. I could probably add more stuff here. This one. And that's exactly what my note's going to be. Add in more stuff? Yes. Okay. Got about 4 minutes left in the sprint. I'm like, I need to massage the inside of my throat. Speaking so much. So much. Okay. Back on track now that I have fixed the foo bars that almost happened. The foo bars that could have been. Let's see. Make sure everything else. It's 2, 3, and 4. Part 3, part 3. Okay. Yep, we're good. We're good. Dripping water gently woke the two birds early the next morning. Rex had already been awake, asleep, and awake again during the night to keep an eye on the storm in the small creek they were next to. The water level never rose to where he thought they would need to leave, which was good. He had his home washed away a few times, but never did mind putting it back together. "Rise and shine, you two," Rex called. "The storm is past, but I ain't letting you head out before you get a good breakfast in ya." Oof. He shook his furry coat once to brush off a chill, then headed out. One leg was barely awake enough to follow, and Hummer simply rode him out into the open air. Leaves and branches littered the ground from the storm the night before. From the storm. Yeah, sure. There were some larger limbs from trees, but other than that, everything looked just wet. Or everything just looked wet. There you go. The sky was still dark gray with clouds, but Rex assured them it wasn't going to rain again anytime soon. "My nose can sniff out the rain better than you know what direction south is," he said proudly. You'll be fine. You'll be fine until you're beyond the clouds. Now, eat something while I rustle up something for myself. Myself, however. Got about 2 minutes left in this sprint. Both the birds agreed and busied themselves, more so Hummer than One Leg. The hummingbird needed to go find flowers that were still intact, but there weren't too many. His companion followed him around for a bit until his stomach growled, betraying his need for food. "I'll be fine," Hummer assured him. "The flowers aren't that far away. I'll meet you back here." One Leg nodded, hoping that there weren't any predators that would try to make a meal of his small friend. Hunger drove him to force the thought out of his mind, the cool wet grass calling his name. Hummer did find some flowers and drank deeply at each one. They were still sweet, but not the same as he was used to. I see you there. It didn't bother him so much as the lack of animal activity did. He noticed that no one was up and around yet. Even the locals that he knew had to be living in the area. He mentally shrugged and carried on until he was full. Rex returned the same time Hummer did, both full and happy while one leg was still tearing at the grass as quickly as he could. He knew he was full, but he wasn't sure what his next meal would be. The prospect of going hungry or landing in dangerous territory was not appealing. Got less than 1 minute left. "You alright, One Leg?" Hummer asked. He had never seen the goose eat with such gusto. "Yeah," he said between mouthfuls. He finally raised his head and swallowed his last bite, savoring the slight sweetness the dew gave the grass. Or the rain. Probably the rain. The rain. "We should go. We might be able to meet up with the flock somewhere on the coast." He waved his beak for Hummer to tuck in, and he did. "Thank you for helping us, Rex." One Leg bowed his head, Hummer doing the same before sinking into the depth of feathers. Huh. "10 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Time's up.
Time is up, and it is also time for me to stand up and take a break. It is a standing break time. I'm gonna get up, stretch, walk around the house, all of that good stuff. If you have been watching or writing for a while, I highly encourage you to do the same. Get your blood flowing, and I will meet you guys back here in about 3 minutes. Alright, we are back. Thank you guys for sticking with me through that short break. See how you guys did? Nice, Tech Angel! Congratulations on your progress! Everyone, congratulations on your progress during these sprints. You are amazing! You can do it! You are doing it! Okay, the next sprint's gonna be at the top of the hour. It's gonna be another 20 minutes long. We'll make it public. We'll copy that. Paste that over there, and word win. Da, 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 da. Going through these emails is like Christmas. Nice. Nice, everybody loves Christmas. And if there is anyone that is new here in chat and you are participating in NaNoWriMo, you can add me as your buddy on the Nano website and then join the group Word Sprint. You don't have to, you could simply just listen to the stream, but if you want to, you can add me. I'll add you right back. It's the only way to actually get in on anyone's group sprints is you have to be buddies of each other, which is kind of odd, but also not kind of odd, I guess. I'm just reinvigorated a little bit. I almost slipped and fell on my butt. That's why I'm reinvigorated right now. There were socks in the house, and we've got hardwood all throughout here, and there are parts of the hardwood that are extra slippery. and you try to take a corner, and you just almost banana peel slip. Oh my god. That would have been interesting. Probably would have laughed. Probably would still be laughing on the floor right now. We got about 5 minutes until we start our next sprint. How is everybody doing? I hope you guys are still having wonderful days. Or at least better days today. As we go through this fun yet stressful month that is National Novel Writing Month. The weekend's gonna be really, really appreciated this time. That's for sure. I mentioned yesterday, I'm gonna drop off the face of the planet, technology-wise. At least, like, work-wise. Sometimes I still get a little work in. Yeah. Just gonna rest the voice. Be free. Try to do fun things. What those fun things are, I don't know. Jesus. So, just for funsies, how much have I added in here? Okay, I still have like, less than 7K floating around in the other parts to add. Okay, so... I'm trying to think of how many pages that's going to be, because right now on Open Office I've got 60 pages. That's before adding in the rest of the stuff, because I haven't found places to do that yet. We haven't reached the places to do that yet. I also need to figure out what order to add them in as well. So I don't have another foobar like last time, and I'm like, oh god, does this come before this, or maybe after this, or I don't know. I does not know. We're checking my nano mails. Oh, guys, don't forget, if you're a part of Nano, today is the Municipal Liaison Appreciation Day, which is to appreciate all of the regional volunteers that have helped set up and do stuff with Nano, basically. All the write-ins, all of that junk. Wonderful, wonderful junk. Oh, Wordwin, you can do that. You just have to keep a copy of them somewhere, or put them, you have to actually physically copy and paste all of the words that you've written onto Nano's website so you can validate how many words you've written. So, keep a copy of it somewhere. It's just been steadily growing. Oh. Yeah, because like on the little drop down place, I'll just pop it up over here. Boop. So this is my place right here. You just go right here and then you actually hit this and it will open up this and you paste everything into this little dude right here and it will validate your words. For anyone who doesn't know. Yes. You can validate your finished project, basically. You don't have to validate it right now in the middle of Nano, unless you want to. And I think every time you go to validate it, you have to paste all of it. Like, all of it. Okay. If you're logged in, you'll have this little bar up here. You just highlight over your words so far, and then check your official word count, just click that, and this will pop up, and you paste everything in this box, and hit validate, and it will validate your words for you. Or it should. It should. Oop. Got about 10 seconds until the next sprint starts. 20 minutes. Gonna be a 20-minute sprint.
Ding! Let the writing begin.
Let's do this, guys. Let's do this, Tech. You can do it. Okay. Anytime. Feel free to remember this spot and visit next year if you need to, of course. Oh, and be careful of the flatlands. That's where the bison roam. They smiled at one another with their eyes, Rex watching as one leg opened his wings and trotted off until he had enough lift to get off the ground. He started early? That's okay. That's totally fine. He would never tire of watching the birds come and go. That's totally fine, Tech. That happened to Paige earlier today. Paige was streaming, and I think she started a word sprint, but then she started typing. Like, she set it up and had like 5 minutes or something until it actually started, and she started typing while it was counting down, and then it said, "Ding, let the writing begin," and she was like, "Wait, what?" I thought it was already going. Like, yep, yeah, nope. Nopes. I did that too myself. Few days ago. It starts to blur together. All of the sprints really do start to blur together, and the breaks in between. So you gotta pace yourself. Anyways. Once in the air, One Leg wasn't sure if he wanted to try to get above the clouds or not. He knew the sun would be up there and help set him in the right direction, but he was wary. Wind and rain could be hiding in the clouds, and he didn't want to take the chance to get blown even farther off course. "We'll stay low for a while," he called back to Hummer. The little bird popped up and glanced around, his eyes eventually seeing the clouds above them. They looked very far away, but he wasn't sure if they were higher than they had been flying previously. "Are you sure?" Hummer asked. He had the same thought about the sun. "How will we know where we're going?" "Can't you feel it?" One Leg asked back. "The pull? It's that way." He looked in the direction they were supposed to be flying, nearly due south. "If we fly to the right, we'll be flying southwest towards the coast." Hummer pulled back into the feathers a bit. He did feel something, but he wasn't sure what it was. Was it the pull? Tech, nice. Nice, at least you got a comfy chair. You can take cat naps in your comfy chair. Which is apparently what I want to do. I think talking so much makes me yawn, but still. The chair is a curse and a blessing. I was about to say it was a cursing and a blessing. Have you always felt the pull? He could see One Leg looking back at him with a side glance. "Of course, haven't you?" Hummer shook his head. "I don't know, I never noticed something like it, but..." He paused to think. He had been raised with squirrels, not birds. He knew more about mammals than his own kind. Remember how I was raised with Roxy and Chiv? Yeah, squirrels, One Leg remembered. It was difficult not to. Hummer's brothers were the sort of mischief makers that made life more enjoyable. They never really told me what it was like to be a bird. You know, for obvious reasons. They couldn't explain things that I felt because they didn't know. They always told me to go ask Mage or other hummingbirds, but I never did. I figured it wasn't important enough. One Leg was surprised. He didn't know just how much Hummer didn't know about being a bird other than flying, it seemed. Well, One Leg started, but his eyes darted upwards, catching a growing shadow at the last moment before he rolled his body to the side, hoping that Hummer was holding on tightly. God. Acting, not my strong suit. Hummer chirped in a rude fashion that sounded accusatory until One Leg righted himself again and started to flap harder, his path becoming erratic. "Eagle!" One Leg shouted while trying to make sure he was a difficult target to hit. The eagle that had missed him swerved low, powered their wings with a strength neither had seen before. Powering, swerved low, powering their wings. There we go. The bird was also massive, certainly large enough that it wouldn't leave them alone easily. "What do we do?" Hummer said too quickly. One Leg only heard squeaking when he tucked a wing in to dip low, but he wasn't fast enough. He felt the brush of talons against his body, a few feathers being snatched out of his shoulder along the way. Ooh. "We have to lose it somehow," One Leg shouted, his eyes never leaving the dark shape as it circled below, then repeated its pattern of climbing the air column again. "Eyes!" Hummer slowed his speech just enough to be heard clearly. "Zalus or hello, good afternoon. How are you doing? Hope you're having a wonderful day today." I'm reading today, out loud. Ugh. He had remembered what his brothers told him about any predator. No one liked their eyes getting scratched up. Hummer watched as the eagle decided not to dive at them again, but rather sink down to their level to catch up. The beat of its wings was quickly overtaking them, but it gave the perfect chance to chase it off. For a moment, Hummer tested his wings to see if he could keep up with One Leg. He found it was actually quite simple as he shuttled above his friend, his head turned back to watch their doom loom in. With a sudden burst of confidence, Hummer screeched his most threatening sound, puffed all of his feathers, and dove at the eagle's face, tiny feet outstretched and ready to claw. Oh, sorry. The giant bird was taken aback, his stunned look giving Hummer a feeling of triumph when his minuscule feet waved in front of one eye. The eagle complained but did not break off its pursuit. Hummer became frustrated, then decided to do something before he could think himself out of it. Feet tucked in, wings buzzed, and Hummer shoved his beak at the eagle's eye, hoping he wouldn't hit. Hummer's getting his rage on. A piercing screech deafened Hummer completely, his eyes closing, body flinching. Or his eyes, well, clenching more tightly probably. His eyes closing more tightly, body flinching. He didn't feel his beak hit anything but air, and when his eyes opened again, the eagle was gone, gliding down away from them. Hummer watched with stunned eyes that his bold move had actually worked. One Leg slowed down until Hummer could grab onto a feather. He secured his feet but still kept his eyes on the eagle, not sure if it would try to come after them again. "I think we're clear," One Leg called back to his friends sometime later. The small bird's eyes were still glued behind them, although he did look around every once in a while. He was forever shaken by the eagle and didn't want to be caught off guard again. "Hummer, it's all right. Relax, get some rest. I'll tell you when we're landing again." His friend didn't respond right away. Instead, he took one last detailed scan of the sky before melting below the surface of beige feathers once again. Just... I don't know why it was funny. It was a very situation. It was a very serious situation. Got about 12 minutes left in this sprint. Tucked away beneath the warmth of feathers, Hummer finally relaxed. He had not been prepared for what the migration had entailed, and he regretted not asking the other birds more about it sooner. It wasn't entirely his fault, though. Not being raised by birds had put him at a slight disadvantage, one that was becoming quite clear. He didn't dwell on it for too long. His tiny little body had been on His tiny little body had been on alert for so long he fell asleep before he wanted to. This might be a break. I'm gonna start highlighting these damn things. Okay. This might be a break. Let me... It's like I'm stitching the story together at this point. That is what is happening. Stitching stories together. Yes, okay. Okay. Now, there's this part. There's this part. And then there's this part. Okay, this is definitely the last, or not the last one. Or it is, okay, it is gonna be the last one. I won't need to put sharp in here. Okay, yeah, sharp won't need to be put in there for a long time, so we could go back to the deer. Or is this the last part for the deer? Oh, it's not. Okay, it's not. The question is, do I put the deer first or the meadow? Probably the meadow. Sure. We'll put the meadow. That was 3, right? Yeah, that was 3. Okay, got that. That is good. Okay, and then the deer. And I'm hoping I'm putting these in at good places, because I may not actually be putting them in at good places. I may be putting them in too close together. That might be a thing. There we go. And then, okay, now we start from here. Okay. Yeah, it's been a while, I think, since we went back to the meadow. There you go. Got about 8 minutes left in this sprint. What is that? Oh no, crept forward to sniff at the wall that had gathered on the other side of their door. The cold could be felt without touching it. Touching it was even more cold, and it was hard, solid like bark, but slippery like wet grass. That, my boys, is... Chiff tapped the wall. Ice, he concluded. It took a few moments for the fact to sink in before he glanced worriedly at his mate. She looked back at him, then at the ice, barring their only way out of the tree. The only good things she could see were tiny little slips of light where it hadn't frozen over entirely, so they would still be able to breathe. It is ice, Roxy confirmed, her tail swishing gently, her head turning to look at her boys, and we'll have to wait for it to melt before we can go outside again. Her eyes swept over them. Only a few seemed worried at the prospect. The others looked bored already. How long will that take? Stuffer asked, his eyes glancing between the ice and his parents. Hard to say. Chiff knocked on the ice again. It felt thick and solid. Could last a few days, or longer if it stays cold enough. Now, don't worry, boys. He heard a few squeaks of fear, but he knew they'd be alright. Your mother and I have been through worse. We just need to be patient and wait. We have enough food, and if we get thirsty, we have this. He motioned to the ice wall. Although, be very careful when you lick it. Your tongue could get stuck. And if your tongue does get stuck, do not panic. Just hold still. He could already see that his boys wanted to test out his warning. Yeah, don't go licking metal poles in winter, folks. Or blocks of ice. He sighed heavily. All right, you can lick the wall now just to get it out of the way. He motioned for them to move, their smaller bodies not hesitating to do so. One by one, they tried licking the ice wall. It was severely cold, but it was still water. The new sensation was infatuating, and they tried licking it in different ways until one inevitably got his tongue stuck. A full second of panic did overwhelm Scratcher until he remembered his father's words. Ah, there you go. See, Scratcher has his tongue stuck. Now, don't panic. Yep, just like you are now. Scratcher let out a sound, trying to tell his dad his stalling wasn't funny. Roxy also nudged Chiff into action. All right, when your tongue gets stuck, try to get your saliva over it. The warm liquid will help release your tongue. He nodded gently and watched his son work out his words. Eventually, Scratcher pulled away from the ice with a very numb tongue. Now, remember this so the next time one of you gets your tongue stuck, you'll know what to do. All 7 of his boys nodded with enthusiasm, thinking of a way to make sticking their tongues to cold things a game. Boys, Roxy said firmly. She knew them too well and didn't want them to get injured. We must be very careful now that the snow is here. I know I've explained a few times how dangerous it is to go outside in the cold, but stay warm, stay dry, the boys recited together, and don't stick your tongues to cold things for too long, Chiff finished for them. You could end up losing it. Listen to your father. When he was your age, he was up to all sorts of mischief. She elbowed her mate gently. Dad? Tosser asked. Mischief? Bounce added on. The brothers looked at one another. They hadn't seen their dad be anything close to mischievous since they could remember. Oh yes, Roxy explained, sitting down. The boys gathered around her, Chiff sitting a bit off to the side so he could let his mate speak. He and Polly would get into all sorts of trouble. It was the good kind, the kind that didn't actually get you into trouble. Her boys looked at her like like there was no possible way to do such a thing. Who's Polly? Runner asked. He had only heard the name in passing when they strayed near the commemoration site by the older animals. Polly was a very dear friend to all of us, she answered, but most of all to your father. She looked over to Chiff, who nodded, giving her permission to tell her story. The boys looked at him but weren't sure what he was nodding about. Got about 3 minutes left in this sprint. Polly was Hummer's mother. Roxy waited for her words to sink in, watching as each pair of eyes suddenly sparkled with understanding. They knew Hummer was a hummingbird and wasn't their actual brother, but no one had ever spoke about his real family before. She was lost in the storm before your eyes were even open. I heard something outside and only found his egg. Later we found out that she passed during the storm. Her voice lilted at the end, adding a bit more somber tone to her words. Aww. All boys shrunk back a bit in sadness, their eyes glancing to their father to gauge his reaction. He looked sad with his eyes closed, but he nodded again, his boys realizing why. Before that, though, she caught their attention again, her voice lifting the spirits. They were the light and life of the meadow. Polly really helped spread the kindness, putting a considerate tone on your father's jokes and games. She smirked, remembering a few of those pranks. They were inseparable. What were some of the games? Hyder asked, his eyes glanced between their parents expectantly. Roxy looked over to Chiff, raising an eyebrow to indicate that he should respond. She wanted him to answer mainly because he hadn't really played games with his sons or partook in their shenanigans. Roxy had taken charge of teaching them the things they absolutely needed to know to survive in hopes that Chiff would take the other side and do fun things with them. Polly's death had impacted him too much, though, leaving him out of the fun times far too often. Far too often. Oh, me? Chip asked, realizing all eyes were on him. Oh, he had to think. While he wanted to forget the pain of Polly's loss, he also blocked out a lot of the fun things they had done together unintentionally. We played a lot of games with the other family's children. Hide and seek, tag, sort of what you play now. Only we played with everyone. The ducks, skunks, other birds, no one was left out. We tailored games for others that couldn't quite do what we could, and we held gatherings. He trailed off, his eyes going unfocused. Those times were the best. We did swimming and diving, helped a few fledglings fly. His eyes smiled in a way his boys had never seen before. The way he was talking about his games made them seem like they were unlike anything else they had experienced. We watched the sunset and sunrise together so many times. Roxy leaned over and touched Chip's shoulder. Oof. He was getting lost in his memories. Oh, sorry. He shook his head and looked around, a game coming to mind. We can play something that everyone can do. That everyone can do, because he's speaking. He reached over and...
Time's up.
Time's up. Time's up. Get your word counts in, everybody. Which is tech. In tech, you don't have to. If you don't want to, that's okay. Oh. I'll still refresh a couple times. Just a couple. The next word sprint we're going to be doing is going to be on the half hour. So about 10 minutes. 9.5, 10 minutes. Which I'll just boop. Boop. Boop, boop, boop. All the boobs. There we go. There we go. If you guys would like to join, you are more than welcome to. You can either click the link or simply listen to the stream. Either way is alright. If you would like to click the link and you're not a buddy of mine on the Nano website, you can add me as a buddy and I will add you back. There we go. A little less than 9 minutes until the next 20-minute sprint. All the sprints and breaks that we're going to be doing are 20-minute sprints with 10-minute breaks. So sprints are on the hour and half hour. Until I'm done streaming for the day. Wordwind, yeah, you can make a straw poll if you want, and you can post the link if you would like some voting. Okay, I'm gonna finish this little part. Okay. He reached over and grabbed the top of an acorn, then another and another. With the three objects, he arranged himself so he could be over the trio, Roxy handing him a smaller seed. He placed it under the middle one and moved them around for a moment before arranging them in a line again. That does not make much sense. There we go. That explains it a little bit better. It's basically the 3-cup game. You put, I don't know, a dice or just a small object under one of 3 cups, and then you rearrange the 3 cups, and you let the person who's playing the game pick which cup they think the object is under. That is what that game I hopefully described is right there. Now, which one is the seed under? He asked. You didn't explain what the rules were, Hyder spoke up. Rules were as solid as the tree they were standing on, and without them the boys were lost. That is the rule. Guess which top the seed is under, or cap, probably. Guess which cap the seed is under. If you're right, you get a point. And this, I would like to change the word point into something else you can keep track of. Suddenly the boys hunkered down and stared at the acorn tops. They, of course, knew where the seed was. Their father hadn't moved them around that vigorously. This one. Runner pointed to the center cap. Jesus. His brother's nodding. Very good. Chiff nodded, replacing the acorn top. Oh, showing. Okay. Oh god. Where are you? I just abused the word cap a million times. Now let's make it more interesting. Okay, points. Points. What would animals use, if animals could play games, as a way to track their progress so they could judge if they had won at the end or not? A tally mark, scratch mark. Sure, why not? Circ. There we go. Okay. And then this should be deer. Okay, good. Scene 3? Scene 3. So that means all of the scenes. That means I'm actually getting close to the end of the story as a whole. Cool. Where are we at? 46. Why did I say 7,000? It was more like 17,000 or 16,000. Now it's 4. Okay. I think I did barely scrape in underneath, or just over the final mark. Okay. Warmer air was welcomed when the deer found a place to rest for the afternoon. It had been many days since Stomp had tried to argue with his mother, and many more since they had last seen the wolf pack eating their meal. The young doe's fears had calmed to a point where it had been nearly forgotten, and they pranced around while their mothers nibbled on what was available. Brar. Word win. Which concept should word write for Nano? Shatterstone, Island Survival, Marguerite, Warships, Crystal Magic, Wolves and Men, Food-a-Girl and Jailbait, Little Farm of Horrors, Without Any Light. None of the above, do them all. Hey, I got an idea. And anyone who is in chat, lurking, not lurking, feel free to vote on one of these concepts. To help Wordwin decide which project to work on for Nano. Choose one or more answers. Okay. I like this one. Got about 2.5 minutes until we start our next sprint. Actually, yeah. Ooh. I have been finding myself appreciating the little twists in horror films, or thrillers or suspense films, where, like, just exactly what you described, Wordwin, on the Without Any Light. Three girls sneak into a rich eccentric's estate to spice up their weekend with an adventure. The secrets they unearth drag them into the horrifying truths behind their town's pristine facade. I like the concept of like these huge revelations of why things are the way they are. Why does this town look so perfect? Why is everyone really awesome all the time? And then you find out the reasons are really nefarious and awful. Or just weird and surprising, or something like a reveal of that kind for me seems refreshing. So, if I had to choose, that's what I would choose. Ooh, 30 seconds until we start our next sprint. Of which I will start reading again. Five, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Ding! Let the writing begin.
Let the writing begin. 20 minutes. Everybody, 20 minutes. Start your writing. Yes. And I'll say why, like, having the horror story and the reveal, or just like any story with that kind of reveal is refreshing, is because I finally have been exposed to that sort of story, to that sort of medium, and it actually was Resident Evil's VR game that triggered that initial, all of this revealing and stuff, revelations and stuff, and then it's not Perfect Dark. What is that other horror game that's out right now? It's like the second in the series. It's basically been some scary games I've been watching people on Twitch playing, where they get all of this revelation, and it's like it's world-changing revelations for these people when they find out this information. Because you thought things were one way, and then all of your beliefs and expectations are just blown out into space. They're gone. They're gone by the new truth and information that's been like shoved down your throat, basically, because they kind of had no choice but to find out. They either needed to, wanted to, or they had no other choice. It would take me like 10 years to write something like that. Because I have no experience with it other than a couple pieces of game media. Maybe I should read some suspense and some horror stuff. Reading my story out loud gives me a little bit of an idea of actually just like reading books on Twitch. I'll steal my mom's idea. My mom actually does want to become a streamer on Twitch to read books out loud, read various fairy tales and whatnot. And that might actually be the only way I will get to read. Zalzer felt snacking. Remember, he had cheese to eat? Secret cheese is wind cheese. It is wind. All the cheese is wind. Anyways, I will continue. Perk stayed out in the open near what she knew to be something a person left behind. Oh, that's right. Oh god. The area they stopped was in a valley with a wide open spot on half of the floor and the other half covered in undisturbed nature. A creek split the two, making the contrast more stark than it already was. A gentle breeze caught Perk under her stomach for tickling the little hairs. She had been so wrapped up in eating whatever bitter thing had been left behind that she hadn't noticed sounds echoing in the hills. When she looked up to see where the breeze came from, she froze. I need to reread that whole damn thing. A gentle breeze caught Perk under her stomach fur, tickling the little hairs. She had been so wrapped up in eating whatever bitter thing had been left behind that she hadn't noticed sounds echoing in the hills, or off the hills, probably. Off of the hills. When she looked up to see where the breeze came from, she froze. Two hulking forms covered in bush patterns were slowly moving towards her. Leafless. Leafless. Something was held in their hands that she recognized. Stomp, she called out as quietly as she could while still keeping her eyes on the creeping forms. As long as they kept moving, she was safe. They never attacked when they moved. Start moving the girls up the hill. Follow just off the wide path like we usually do. Her words hitched. The forms stopped, dropped low and positioned themselves. She didn't wait to hear a response because she couldn't. Her eyes were glued to the larger form that was pulling something back. Yeah, jeez. Whack. Org. I won't make the sound, but just whack. Whack. Perk jumped into the air, feeling another brush of air across the back of her left elbow. She knew what it was and knew that her family had to leave right away. Her feet bounced her back into the air when she landed as she bounced a few more times. Wow, and she bounced a few more times until she was safely behind a tree. She could hear the fleeting stomps of her family running away from the area where she told them to, but she could also see the two figures rise and start moving again. They were slow, incessant in their movements. They always were. The hell happened here? Okay. I forgot to put my phone on. Don't give a F. There we go. There we go. There we go. There we go. She stayed still and watched, making sure she had the attention of both the leafless bushes. Her intent was to keep them distracted until she knew the rest of her family was safe. Sometimes the things, the people, chased them, but only if they knew they could keep up. If she could keep their attention long enough and escape without harm, she knew they wouldn't pursue. Damn, son, what are you doing? And I mean the actual sun, it just kind of... Whew, that is bright. Ahem, excuse the interruption. Anyways. Stalking slowly, the shorter leafless bush made its way to where she had been snacking on the wonderful bitter treat she had found. It stood tall facing her, the form nearly blending into the trees and plants around it. It was difficult to see what it was doing exactly, but a moment before she knew she was going to die, another loud whack startled her into dashing away from her cover and heading uphill. Her mind raced as fast as her body. She hadn't even seen the warning signs that it would strike. Not even the shine of the sharp part of the stick that she knew she couldn't... Oh my god. Not even the shine of the sharp part of the stick that she knew could end any of them. It was fortunate that it had missed her, and she thanked the circle for not taking her before she could show her offspring where their wintering grounds were. What was that? Buck was nearly yelling at Stomp when Perk met up with him again. They had stopped at another, more grassy meadow up the hill. Perk wasn't entirely satisfied that they were safe, but that... Oh my god, words. The sun is distracting me. Perk wasn't entirely satisfied that they were safe, but they all needed to catch their breath. That's why. There we go. It was a person, Perk answered for them. She had seen them before. Stomp had as well, but only a rare few times had they actually tried to attack. Person? One of the young does made their way between the three older deer and looked around. Perk nodded and motioned for everyone to gather near the tree line. On their way there, they were all startled again by a shadowy figure lying under a pine tree. Dear God. And this deer scene, fun fact if anyone is interested, was from personal experience. I was one of those hulking, leafless bushes. And I missed. Thankfully, I missed. At first glance, Stomp froze, thinking it was a wolf or a cougar because it was lying down. When he saw the outline of dark antlers, he relaxed and stepped in front of the still very wary does. "Don't need to fear this one," his voice said softly. It sounded rough, like he had slept for too long and hadn't been able to get a drink of water yet. "Who are you?" Stomp asked. He tried to relax his posture to not look challenging or threatening. He wanted to avoid a confrontation if he could. "Just a buck resting under a tree," he replied slowly. "Don't want to scare any of the younger ones." Stomp was confused as to why the deer was acting so strange. He stepped forward to get a better look, but his hooves stopped short. His hoofs. I decided to use hoofs because they're the same. The deer under the tree had seen better days. I have also seen this deer we are about to describe, except he was in worse shape. "It's all right," he said, his head giving a little nod. "I'm harmless." What happened? The does made their way closer as well, the younger ones hiding behind their mothers with their ears turning in all directions just in case. "A cougar, a few hills over," he replied. As he stood, the other deer could more clearly see his healed injuries. An eye was closed and scarred over. Gash marks had torn places on his face, neck, and flanks. One leg was much more wobbly than the others. A chunk of ear was missing. "Will you make it through the winter?" Perk asked, catching the attention of her family. The frankness in which she spoke surprised them. "Oh, yes, I'll be fine. I live around here and know where to go when the snow gets too heavy. I've been making my way there for a while after I healed up a bit. Do you need some directions?" "Thank you, but no. We know where we're going." Perk trailed off to take a good hard look at the buck in front of them. His wounds were mostly healed, but his leg was what would get him killed eventually. If not predators, then the weather if he couldn't move fast enough. Polly's influence told her to help the buck, but she knew she couldn't. When Stomp looked at her, she gave the smallest shake of her head to tell them they wouldn't help the buck. He was on his own. Looking at the rather large family in front of him, the injured deer couldn't help but feel content. He hadn't seen another deer around for quite a few days, only the hunters that had been stalking them and scaring them away. He wasn't sure if he would be found by them, but he would still do his best to survive. "You should keep moving. Stick to the bottoms of the ravines. They're the safest around here," he told them. The young ones looked at him, a touch of fear in their eyes. He looked back with gentle kindness in one eye he could barely see out of. It was good to see some young does. It reassured him that his kind had a chance to make it through the winter to see many more. "Thank you." Park bowed her head to the buck, the rest of her family following suit before she turned and started to walk away. The injured buck watched for a few moments before deciding he had stood long enough for a while. Stomp tried to burn the image of the buck into his memory. He did not want him to be forgotten entirely, just like he hoped he wouldn't be forgotten by those he had met in his life. It was one thing that comforted him about the circle. Those that remembered him made sure he would live on, and it gave him peace. Okay. Oh, alright, I'm okay with that. We got about 8 minutes left in this sprint. I'm running out of water. That's okay, my break. My stand-up break is really soon. I can go get more water. And Ricky Lowe, hello. Or Ricky. Hello, welcome. If you're new here, hello, my name is Jasmo. I am usually a variety creative streamer, but this month, November, I'm a writer because of National Novel Writing Month, or NaNoWriMo. And my voice is very tired. If you don't know what NaNoWriMo is, I would be more than happy to explain. If you're popping in just to say hi, hello. If you're gonna lurk, please enjoy your lurk. Lurkers are more than welcome here. You're actually working on a book right now. Nice. Very nice. If you have any links to any of your works that you would like to share, go ahead. If not, that's okay too. I keep thinking, I'm getting close to the end of reading my story. Like, I keep adding the parts in. There's only 1, 2, 3. Yeah, there's only 3 more parts to add in, so that makes me happy. Ooh. Oh, Ricky, thank you for the cheer. Much appreciated. Such generosity, much gratitude. Toss in some opinions, alright. Oh, that's right, you can vote on Wordwin's list of ideas for Wordwin to write for Nano if you like. Boop, boop, boop. Oh dear, oh dear. There we go. Didn't mean to grab it, okay. Yes, 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 indeed. Keep up great work, don't ever quit. It's positive ideas. And then it gets dark again. Yep. Encouragement. Support for Nano, indeed. Because we're over the halfway point, and I'm sure some people are feeling the push, feeling the pressure, feeling the and or life has interfered by now, keeping the word counts on the lower side of the scale. Got about 5 minutes left in this sprint. Wondering how long I should rest my voice. Okay, watch your eyes. I'm gonna scroll really quick. Bison. Oh dear. Oh dear. No. There we go. Oh Jesus! The part 2 keeps going away. Okay. Sunlight, make up your mind, or clouds, make up your minds. It might be a while before I actually get back to that. Or not. Hang on. Sorry, this is my inner monologue going. Okay. Ricky Lowe, thank you for the follow, much appreciated. Well met, and welcome to the tank. Because I'm a marine biologist in spirit and heart. There you go. That's right, there's like 6 of them. Okay. I can interject some. Yes. Let's do it. Let's do it. I haven't even gotten here yet, but it's a little tiny something. Because there are way more of these than there are anything else. Hurt. There we go. Watch the page count increase exponentially. Not really exponentially. Okay, Pine Lord, welcome. How are you doing? Welcome back. Okay. That's Deer Mecca. That was... Okay, that was that. Okay, so... Dear Mecca. Where would Dear Mecca pop in? Probably right here. Okay. Sorry, I'm trying to like plan ahead a little bit so I don't have to do this. And it's only like 2 tiny paragraphs, and that's all the deer. That is all of the deer. Yes. Okay. Okay. Tech Angel, you think you're just tired today? that? Where did I leave off? Oh no. Hang on. No, soon 4. Okay. Control Alt C. Maybe? Yes. Control Alt C. Deer. Ooh, soon 4. Got about a minute left in this sprint. Alright. Okay. Lots of scrolling. Watch your eyes. Okay. This is where I've left off. Okay. Good. And we just read the deer spot. Okay. Good. I'm hoping everything is lined up all right. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Bing! Time's up.
Time's up, and that is also going to be my break time. I'm going to stand up, get some more water, walk around the house for a bit. And if you have been watching or riding for a while, I highly encourage you at least get up, maybe wiggle around a little bit, and I will meet you guys back here in about 3 minutes. Alright, we are back. Thank you for sticking with me through that short break. How did everybody do? I ran around the house. I ran. Whew. Okay, next sprint is going to be on the top of the next hour. Oh, 2 sprints left to go for today. I don't know if I ever posted the link to the last one. I do apologize if I did not. Now, I honestly think the number at the end of the link for these sprints is how many sprints there have been on the site since November. And if that is true, 30,091 group sprints have been done, which is awesome if that is the case. We've got about 6 minutes until our next sprint starts. It's like the sun was like, oh yeah, it's my day today. Because it's been like rainy, cloudy, like severely cloudy since last Friday. Yeah, like a week. That's what I get for running. Ugh. Sprinting. Literal sprinting around the house. There we go. Warm. Nah. It's kind of zen time for me, so I can let my voice rest a little bit. I did get more water. I don't need chapstick. As much as I would like to. We'll break that habit. I'll try to break that habit. How is everybody doing on whatever it is that you're doing? How's your day going? Oh, Jesus. Partly cloudy skies and wind. Or if you're lurking, just enjoy your lurk. Not like this is not a call out. I'm enjoying the music. Two more sprints left for the day, and then it's the weekend. Crap, I don't think I actually got the time Erica was going to start her streams. All I know is that Erica Drayton, fellow writer, she just got home recently, and she was going to do a 6-hour stream tomorrow on Saturday, and then on next Saturday, a 12-hour stream. I do believe for Nano, too. Of course it's for Nano. Maybe. Yes, it is. Writing. She's a writer. It's Nano. These are all the dad jokes that Pine Lord and Psy Rider have provided for the story. that is why that pops up. I have a lot of notes. I have a lot of notes. My entire second monitor is almost entirely covered in these digital sticky notes. There we go. I have Morbid on my list. Alright. Let's keep the cap off the water. Sorry that I'm just sitting here. I really am resting my voice because this is killing it. Oh, this takes a toll. It really does. Okay. Back to work. Okay. One leg flew on in silence, the urge to get above the clouds finally pushing him to climb up through the vapors. It wasn't nearly as arduous as he thought it would have been, and once he was in the clear blue sky again, everything felt right. Warm rays chased cool air away, and he could feel the heat rise gently beneath him, making flying easier. The cool air away, okay. Progress was easy until the sun started to sink in the sky, the warm air going with it. The clouds below had long since vanished below them, making one leg scour the landscape for possible places to land. Green forest stretched out with only patches open to the flat land. but they were all too small. Too tightly packed and oh, okay. Oh, this sentence, what is wrong with you? Green forest stretched out with only patches open to the flat land. But they were too small, too tightly packed to land safely. Okay, he decided to wait until they reached the more clear plains he could see farther out. So there is a problem. Got less than a minute until we start our next sprint. How did... What? What is this auto-completion? Go, shoo. Okay. Green forest stretched out with only patches of flat land open. But they were all too small, too tightly packed. They were all too small and too tightly packed to land safely.
Ding! Let the writing begin.
Let the writing begin. 20 minutes. Here we go. He decided to wait until they reached the more clear plains he could see farther out. A nagging feeling itched at the back of his mind when his feet finally hit solid ground again. He didn't want to wake his friend that had been sleeping heavily on his back for the day. He needed the rest from the stress of being on alert. They both did. Sweet grass scented the air, making One-Leg's stomach growl again. He was thankful he had overeaten a little bit, but there was still a nagging feeling that told him not to stay still for too long. Are we there yet? Hummer yawned from his friend's back, startling a honk out of him. Immediately, One-Leg started laughing, trying to keep his voice down to a purr so as not to be too loud for his tiny friend. We've landed for now. I was hungry. Hummer buzzed into the air to look around. Open, flat ground surrounded them as far as he could see, the tiny tops of trees barely cresting the horizon. Didn't Rex say something about the flatlands? Hummer asked. His eyes kept scanning around them, then above, afraid that yet another predator would try to swoop down on them. I think he did, but we'll be fine. We can see anything coming our way. Hummer bobbed his head, not really agreeing. Rex had seemed somewhat insistent that they be extra careful or flat out avoid the plains. It was where the bison roamed. What are bison? Hummer asked, his head swiveling around to find One-Leg tearing at the grass around him. One-Leg swallowed his mouth full of grass. They're big, kind of like moose. Moose? Hummer's eyes went wide. Moose were the largest creatures he had ever seen. Was bison plural? One-Leg continued to eat, still worried that there would be a time when eating was not an option. He was so focused on the ground in front of him, he did not hear the gentle rumbling in the distance. That grew louder. He was so focused on the ground in front of him, he did not hear the gentle rumbling in the distance grow louder. Okay, it makes sense. I got rid of the plural because human speak. As much as I am definitely typing everything in English. Okay. I have to keep adjusting my music so I can hear it. One-Leg continued to eat, still worried that there would be a time when eating was not an option. Okay. Hummer heard the rumbling. He wasn't sure what it was as it grew in volume up to the point he could feel the pressure waves of the sound itself. One-Leg? Hummer flew over to his friend and tapped his head with the underside of his beak. One Leg took another mouthful of grass, the ground beneath them now shaking. I think there's something coming. And he yells One Leg, because I've been bad at acting. The goose looked up just as a dark wall of bodies crested over a shallow hilltop, a huge cloud of dust following the wall. Hummer dove into the feathers of One Leg's back while the goose started to run to try and take off. He managed to get into the air, but not high enough before they were overtaken by the stampede. Webbed feet bumped into giant furry bodies jostling one another as they ran just beneath the birds, unaware that they were even there and didn't know they were carrying away the precious air that the goose needed to get high in the sky. I don't know if that would actually happen, but I'm apparently going with it. Instead of rising, One Leg was slowly sinking back down into the chaos until his foot bumped heavily into a body, pulling the rest of him with it. A goose body bounced along the backs of the running bison, who took no note of him, even as a tiny bird was thrown loose and flitted into the air following them. One Leg fell into the dust cloud, honking and bouncing away, and there was nothing Hummer could do about it. He thought about following, but an errant horn caught him bodily and carried him away. He slid down the horn, dazed and confused by rushing legs, dust everywhere and flying fur. I think dust and flying fur everywhere. There we go. His wings barely worked, and voice couldn't reach above the incessant thundering of hoofs to yell for help. Dodging became impossible with each passing of a leg, spinning the poor hummingbird around and around again until he was sick. Determined not to be squashed after surviving a storm and leaving home, Hummer powered his wings, found which way was down, and buzzed in the opposite direction. At first it worked, his eyes opening in triumph, body aching with each beat. A soft, fluffy wall snatched him out of the air in a soft bed, momentum keeping him in place. He wasn't sure how long it lasted until it stopped, and he felt himself falling but was too tired to care. Bison milled about, a few still breathing hard from their earlier scare. They stopped in a grassy area that distracted them from their sprint. One such bison leaned down to take a mouthful of grass when something looked out of sorts. On the ground it looked like there was a soft, feather-covered rock barely moving. What is that? A few heads looked over to the curious lump, picking it out immediately. Not many rocks or pebbles were found out in the open, just dirt, grass, and dirt clods. I don't know. It looks like some sort of feathers? Yeah, feathers. You ever seen a bird that small? Several bison gathered around the tiny thing that was Hummer, who was still dazed. The circle grew tight. The more it was noticed, something curious was happening. Okay. The circle grew tight the more it was noticed something curious was happening. One Leg made a beeline straight for the gathering group, eventually pushing his way through legs and bodies politely and gently. Excuse me, pardon me, hey! Excuse me, pardon me, miss, mister. His head led the way until it poked into the center open area surrounding his fallen friend. Hummer? 13 minutes left in this sprint. Need to get rid of Miss and Mister. Need to replace. That would seem kind of brash. So, bison are called bulls and cows, just like cows and bulls. They are bulls and cows, just like elk are also cows and bulls, males and females. Females are called cows, males are called bulls. I don't know if I actually want to use that though, because it would excuse me, cow. Ooh. Oh, bull. Of course, like, to me that does not seem polite. But then again, One Leg probably wouldn't be using the word pardon. Maybe. I don't know. I'll leave it. I'll leave it. It might be... I might change my mind in the coming editing sections. Because this is the lightly editing section. Okay. Hummer? Carefully, One Leg stepped into the open, many pairs of bison eyes on him. Hummer. He leaned his long neck down, nearly putting his face on the ground. He could see the tiny chest still rising and falling. Hummer chuckled, then more chuckling followed, then finally outright laughter. One Leg was worried his little friend had lost his mind. Oh, Hummer breathed. Oh, that was terrifying! Now I know how they must feel. Hummer sat up to shake his feathers out, ridding himself of some dust. My brothers, One Leg, this is why they run around the trees, leaping and falling, catching themselves, the rush. He buzzed up into the air, feeling elation, his blood pumping heavily through his tiny little veins. I can't believe we survived that, can you? He flitted around to shuttle in front of One Leg's face. The goose did not seem to share his sentiment, other than looking glad that they were both in one piece. Next time we'll listen to the locals, One Leg replied a bit smugly. Hummer laughed again, forgetting that they had nearly died. A quiet cough caught their attention, the bison still watching them. Hummer reflexively moved closer to One Leg once he saw all the giant mammals looking at them, surrounding them. Hi? One Leg looked around, not sure what to do. Hi, a bison replied. Is that really a bird? All eyes waved back and forth between the two birds that could only look at one another. Yes, Hummer piped up, rising into the air a little higher. My name is Hummer. I'm a calliope hummingbird. Oh, the bison hummed back. We've seen hummingbirds before. Probably just not ones as small as you. Are you migrating? Large heads leaned in so they could better hear the answer. Yes, I'm migrating with One Leg. Ooh. Hummer's beak pointed to the goose. Migrating with a goose? Mumbling rolled through the gathered crowd. They had never heard of a goose migrating with other birds before. Yeah, One Leg chimed in, his confidence slowly returning. My family and a few others have always stopped in a meadow up north to pick up the local hummingbirds. It's been that way for generations. A murmur of approval vibrated around. That's very gracious of you and your family. We protect the small as well. Heads nodded all around. An awkward silence filled the air for the birds as the bison were still agreeing with one another. They weren't sure whether they would be allowed to leave or if they could simply take off from where they were. One Leg knew he needed more room for a proper takeoff, so he broke their train of thought. Yeah, we're headed southwest to the coast from here. We just stopped to get a bite to eat when... Oh, we're terribly sorry about that. A snake spooked some of our little ones and the herd mentality just took over. Are you all right? Hummer asked, his natural concern showing. Oh, yes, quite. It's not a new thing. Tomorrow will be a shadow that sends us thundering over some poor rodents' homes, I'm sure. The bison chuckled to themselves. Well, we've been keeping you long enough, the crowd echoed it. The crowd echoed in agreement. Thank you for answering our questions. We wish you the best on your journey. They started to disperse, leaving the birds relieved that they didn't need to talk their way out of leaving. Are you really all right? One Leg looked to Hummer as he still shuttled in the air. His head bobbed, but he didn't say anything. I didn't know that migrating was going to be so... Hummer hovered over to One Leg's back and sat down as heavily as he could. Adventurous? One Leg finished. You could say that. Hummer looked up to his large companion. Did you ever think something like this would happen? Only because Dad prepared us, One Leg replied. It felt like he started preparing us since we hatched, telling us how to be careful, what to do if we got separated. He covered nearly everything. Is that why you've been so calm? You've been pretty calm yourself, One Leg lowered his head. There's a period there. One Leg lowered his head. I don't know why he's lowering his head, though. I think I've just been tired. Resting all day, then resting all night. It makes you sluggish. Oh, yeah. One Leg didn't really understand, but he nodded anyways. We should probably still rest for a bit. Maybe see if we've been heading on the right path. You think the bison will know? Hummer looked looked to the grazing herd. They might. Wouldn't hurt to ask. One leg started walking over to a bison that had asked them a question. Oh my god. My voice is dying. It's dying. Got about 6 minutes left in the sprint. Got about 5 minutes left in this sprint. Eh. This is only light editing. I'll add things if they need to be added later. Laters, that is what the second edit is for. And so on and so forth. It almost looks like he has a smile because his beak upturns right here. Sorry. I just noticed that. Don't pay attention to me. My weird observations. Okay. 4 minutes left in this sprint. Excuse me. The bison looked up with a gentle gaze, teeth grinding grass into a paste. Do you know where we are? Stillness felt unnatural to the bison when they paused at the question. We're just south of Montana in Colorado, he replied. Rocky Mountains are that way. He pointed to the west. We're in the basin. That way is west? One leg confirmed, pointing with his wing. The bison nodded in return. Thank you. He waddled off a ways until they were well outside of the herd. Do you need anything? The goose asked the hummingbird. I'll be fine until our next stop. Hummer looked around, not really wanting to stay in the open, afraid that a predator or another stampede would permanently end their journey. I wouldn't mind taking off. All right. I think I'm in agreement, too. I think I'm in agreement. Too many close calls. Hummer nodded, hunkering down for takeoff. Sun warmed the skies as one leg flew on, his eyes and ears ever alert for other geese. He let Hummer rest, thinking it was the best thing the small bird could do after 2 close calls. He would chat with him another day or enlist his help to watch for others. Later. Later. Instead of flying southwest, one leg flew mostly west, hoping to reach the coast sooner. What he found, much to his dismay, were tall mountains and echoes of previously learned lessons telling him not to try to go over them. Sighing heavily, he turned south and followed the range, putting the sinking sun to his right where it should have been. It painted the land below in golden-orange hues with deep blue shadows, making it difficult to choose a place to land. One leg knew a pond or a lake would be safer than land. He just had to find one. There. There, and then a honk, very loud, surprised honk. And sorry, Hummer called. He didn't mean to startle his friend, who was thoroughly embarrassed that he had been surprised at all. It's all right. I didn't even feel you moving back there. One leg shook his head slightly. I see a pond down there. Would that work? Hummer walked his way to one leg's shoulder and pointed with his beak. They took a moment, but the goose finally saw it. Erica, hello, good afternoon to you. How are you doing? Did you make it home okay? Transferring sites from one URL to another. Fun, I bet. Oof. Crap. Didn't even find the goose fangs out. That should work, he agreed. He waited until Hummer tucked in again to start his descent. It was a long journey home, but you're home. You're back home. Traffic was insane when we left the airport. And welcome home, by the way. Deep blue slowly swallowed the skies after they landed on the water, one leg making sure to get close to the shore so they for a bit before sleeping. Huh. Get close to the shore. So they could eat for a bit before sleeping. The pond was quiet enough with a few other birds or insects active. A few families of ducks were there too, but paid them no mind. Whoop, time, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Bing! Time's up.
Time's up. Get your word count in. There will be a 10-minute break, and the next sprint will start on the half hour. And it will be the last sprint of the day. Erica, when are you streaming tomorrow? Like what time? And are you still doing 6 hours? Okay. You are streaming tomorrow, okay. Possibly for longer than 6 hours, alright. Okay, a little less than 9 minutes until our next sprint. And for those that are sprinting, stand up, get up, stretch, go for a little tiny mini walk, wiggle out your wrists and your fingers and whatnot, avoid that carpal tunnel. We'll be starting about 5 p.m. Pacific time. Alright, so 5 o'clock in the evening, Pacific time. That will be 6 p.m. Mountain Time, 7 p.m. Central Time, 8 p.m. Eastern, I do believe. Yes. Oh, Tech Angel, 4,426 to go until par. If you can do it tonight, you can do it tonight. You can do it. Or you can get damn close to doing it. Shoot for the moon, though. Shoot for the moon. You can do it. You've got this. You hope to get started sooner. Okay. So, possibly 5 to 11 Pacific, with a hope to get started sooner. Okay. I'm also going to rest my voice here for a bit. Mm. 7 minutes until the sprint's going to start. Or you can use this break as a sprint. Sorry, those are really long parts. Okay, where would this go? The deer are done. The deer are done. Oh, so eagle first. Eagle first. Okay. Sharp gets to go first. I've got it. Okay, I've got it. Sorry. If you guys follow Melody Casey, and I know you do, some of you do, she's currently at PAX Unplugged for like a board game convention. Yep. Instagram. They're there. And I think that's where they're going to be all weekend, so Erica, you won't have Melody lurking around unless she can stop by somehow. I don't know. I'm not sure. I think she is there all weekend, her and Ryan. Got about 4 minutes left until the next sprint starts. Debating on, yep, yes I am going to. It's like I have pretty much no chapstick left except for what I can carve out of it. Because I've not gone to get any more yet. There we go. I need to break the habit, the chapstick habit. Okay. I'm trying to think of where to put the other pieces of the story. I'm not entirely sure. Although the next piece of the story shouldn't get put in for quite some time. Okay. Got about 2 minutes until the sprint starts. It's going to be my last 20-minute sprint of the day. Got about a minute left until we start our sprint. Get ready. Get ready. Are you ready? I'm ready. 4, 3, 2, 1.
Ding! Let the writing begin.
Oh, yes, yes. And Wordwin has some votes out. If you guys would like to help Wordwin decide on what to write for Nano, as late as it is in the month, go ahead and vote for your favorite concept out of the list Wordwin has provided. Can you vote more than once? I'm gonna find out. No, okay. No's you cannot. I can view the results though, and they are still split. Still split. Okay. Here we go, 19 minutes. Let's get as far as we can get. Hummer returned with a full stomach, ready to get some real rest for the night, trying not to let his pessimistic feelings push to the surface. So much had gone wrong already, and one leg was flying solo. Would they ever make it to their destination? Would they ever find another flock to fly with? You'll ever think we'll find another flock? Hummer finally asked. He was resting on his friend's back, unable to hold his question. Of course, there are a lot of geese out there. We'll run into some eventually. One leg replied, with quiet confidence. Hummer let his friend's words sink in, even repeated them to himself a few times. They would find other geese. They would make it. Morning came. Grass and nectar filled stomachs along with chilled dew doused in sweet air. Hummer tucked himself in. One leg took off and their journey continued away from the rising sun. At its highest peak, the sun revealed not only sky and clouds to one leg, but finally other flocks of geese headed in somewhat the same direction. Excitedly, he made his way over, alerting Hummer to the new development. Surprised geese made room for one leg to fly with them, his story getting related to everyone only to find out they weren't flying as far south as they needed to go. The new flock did, however, know that there were several other flocks spread out across the land, and the ones closer to the coast were more likely to either know the way or be flying that far as well, or that far south as well. One leg was a little disappointed with the news, but was grateful for the drafting from the flocks all the same. Hummer didn't quite feel the same. He was grateful for drafting from the flocks. Hummer didn't quite feel the same, sure. Negative thoughts plagued him once again, this time about one leg. He was a yearling. It was his first migration. Was he strong enough to fly on his own, joining up with flocks randomly? Would it take them too long to get south and the weather would overtake them like the stampeding bison? How did I get so negative? Hummer wondered to himself. He had never been dark or doubtful before. He knew it had to do with leaving his family behind, but he wasn't sure how the two were connected. There's the curse or lack thereof I was speaking of earlier. We'll make it, one leg called back. He could feel the smaller bird fidgeting round, usually a sign of restlessness. It will just take a little longer. More shifting as if Hummer didn't quite believe him. One leg sighed, wishing that his smaller friend had more faith in both of them. One day turned into 2, 3, and many more by the time endless water crested the horizon. Over the horizon. Hang on. There we go. When it came into view, he honked with joy, jolting Hummer out of a restless dream in which he was trying to peck out the eyes of an eagle. Ugh. Hummer shook the dream from his thoughts, his friend's overjoyed honking bringing his heart rate up, which rose even more when sparkles caught his attention. Is that the ocean? As far as their eyes could see, water stretched to either side and outwards, the mass continuously growing the closer they became. That's the ocean, one leg shouted, his body jostling around in excitement. I told you we would make it. He let out another honk, followed by laughter. They had made it. They had done it. Hummer laughed a few times as well at just how crazy it was that they had made it. His voice faded, though, a deep sense of guilt settling in. He should have had more faith in his friend that was literally carrying him all the way to their final destination. About 15 minutes left. He was about to apologize for his mood when something very strange caught his eye. Below them, odd rock and boulder formations sprouted from the ground like trees, but they were also surrounded by more black rock with only a few plants here and there. Colorful moving rocks seemed to float and glide around on their own. How strange. What are those? Hummer asked, unable to tear his eyes away. Those are buildings and cars, One Leg informed his friend. They make up a city. He looked down to see if he could spot the animals his dad had seen from... his dad had pointed out from other cities. They had flown over. Oh, those things walking around on two legs? He banked gently to the left so Hummer could see better. Those are people. They build all the other stuff. Your dad said they were like beavers, but on land. I've never seen a beaver build anything even close to this. The buildings kept getting taller and taller, even closer together at some points. Only pockets of green could be seen. Eventually the air started to smell strange. That's pollution, One Leg offered before Hummer could ask. It doesn't smell very nice. I'm gonna try and find a place closer to the ocean to land. I'm hoping there's a park or something similar. Hummer held on tightly as his friend made his way through the ever-growing odd city, sometimes circling, sometimes retracing their path. It looked like there was no place close to the water that they could land, but there was a lovely park that looked like it was already occupied by other geese. Landing was a bit tricky. The park wasn't only occupied by geese, but by several people with more dogs, and it was generally chaos. Even the pond where One Leg had picked to land had a fountain in the center of it, churning the water and making it difficult to see how deep it was. Okay. Wordwin has some top-notch ideas. I like them all. It was difficult to pick. Choosing what he thought was the safest approach. Safest, there you go, approach. The goose took his time and used a very gentle slope to glide down, the wind just right to assist. A few people had to duck out of the way, but One Leg didn't pay attention to them, his sights squarely focused on the water and skiing to a gentle stop. Hummer was once again surprised at the light, smooth landing One Leg had made, especially in the tight quarters that were available. Other geese were in the water along with ducks and even some people and dogs. The air was very warmer. The air was much warmer than Hummer was used to, but it felt nice compared to the cooler air higher up. Hang on. Hate that. Loose skin on like just below your fingertips. Yeah. The kind that stings if it gets peeled up too much. Anyways, too much information. Just look first, One Leg warned him. I've never been someplace this crowded before. The dogs are probably the most worrisome. Alright, Hummer agreed. He only stuck his head out so he could look around. Do you think predators would be here? I don't know. With things this busy, one might take advantage of someone not paying attention. No one would know someone is gone until it was too late. One Leg bent his head low. The crowded area set him more on edge than he had ever been. If his family had been with him, he was sure they both would feel much safer. I think I see some flowers over there next to the shore, Hummer pointed out. One Leg followed the beak pointing across the way where there were rather large flowers growing out of the water. All right. Watch out for snakes. The wariness grew in One Leg's gut, but he didn't want to he didn't want to trust anything around them, even if it looked familiar. Some geese honked in greeting at One Leg on his way over to the flowers. He bobbed his head in response, but didn't swim over. He knew how hungry he was, and if he was hungry, then Hummer was even more so. The little bird didn't even wait until they reached the flowers. He buzzed right over and dove inside one. One Leg smiled with his eyes, his body feeling the exhaustion of flying solo for so long. Span had warned them all that it would be more difficult, but to keep pacing themselves moderately so they didn't burn out and simply not make the journey. A heavy, tired sigh left the goose, his head dipping low to pick at the grass on the edge of the water. Everything was different in the city. The noises, the smells, even the taste of the food. It wasn't nearly as sweet or as clear where there were no people to find. He did, however, approve of the layout of the city and how easy it was to find the park, or find a park. He simply needed to look for gaps in between the buildings. In between buildings is fine. Hummer returned laden with not only nectar but pollen as well. The yellow stuff stuck to his feathers all over him, head to tail. He didn't really care though. He was grateful for the large flowers, even if they didn't taste as good as the others he had in the past. Oh. Okay. How long are we here for? The little bird landed on One Leg's back for safety, his feet wiggling in between the feathers so he could find a good grip just in case of an emergency takeoff. I don't know. One Leg paused in his grazing. There are other geese here. We can ask them if they're flying south and if we can tag along. Whenever they leave, if it's not today, we can leave with them. Sounds good. Hummer slumped back, his mind and body tired from all of the traveling. He hadn't really perked up enough to hold conversations after the bison stampede. His thoughts clouded his want too much. Oh. His thoughts dissuaded his want? Got about 8 minutes left in this sprint. Oh, that's not how you spell dissuaded. There you go. Coalesces. His thoughts dissuaded his want too much, and he partially blamed himself for talking too much. Already? Maybe? If he had chatted less during their initial flight, he felt like the storm wouldn't have torn them apart. It felt like there was a lesson he needed to learn. Zaliser, think you found a new challenge in Dwarf Fortress? Do tell. Do tell. Sourpuss, One Leg said suddenly. He had seen that look on Hummer before, and he didn't like it. Cheer up. Hummer was caught off guard by his friend. Sorry, I just can't help thinking. He trailed off, not wanting to lay his guilt bare, in fear of that One Leg would agree with him. It's not your fault. It's no one's fault. We can't help what the weather does. One Leg paddled in a circle, trying to get a better view of his tiny friend, but failed. There's nothing different we could have done other than land and wait it out. Dad thought we would be alright, and we followed his lead, but it's not his fault either. Fluffed feathers told One Leg that Hummer didn't quite believe him. You still regret not staying behind? The question was supposed to be less jarring than it was. Hummer nearly fell over into the water. Rocky wasteland, no forest above the ground, surrounded by goblins and 2 necromancer towers. Oh my god. In Wordwin, you could manage the challenge of keep them from killing themselves with stupidity. That can be a challenge. Got about 6 minutes left in this sprint. I don't know, he admitted. Mixed feelings. The longer we fly, the more it feels like it's the right thing to do. I never felt the pull like how you feel it. I never thought I'd leave home. It's just this thinking in circles is driving me mad. I don't know how to break the cycle. He idly poked at One Leg's feathers. I regret leaving, even though I know what would have happened. Flowers don't grow in winter there. I'd have no food, no warmth. I left my family behind. The kin I trust and care about most. Will they be safe? Will I ever see them again? Those are all Hummer's awful thoughts. Zaliser, you have too many squirrels here. You have too many squirrels here. They start getting aggressive when their numbers start getting high enough. Yeah, they do. Got about 5 minutes. 5 minutes left. One Leg let Hummer carry on for as long as he wanted to. He had no idea the little bird was weighed down so heavily by his thoughts, and when he admitted that he thought chatting caused the storm, he knew that something had to change. JasmoColors coming up for some air. How's it going? Welcome back. Yeah, Erica's lurking here a little bit. Might be sprinting. Hummer. One Leg made him stop dwelling on the bad. Get everything off your chest, off your mind, then let it go. The small hummingbird looked up into deep brown eyes that reflected understanding. I know what it's like to leave an area behind you've known all your life, but not your family. But not your family. You can trust them, though. Roxy and Schiff have been through several winters of their own. They know what to do. Your brothers are helpful, resourceful. They'll be fine. Say it with me. They'll be fine, they said together. Hummer did feel a little better. And we'll also make it to the end of the migration. We just need to be patient and keep an eye out for other geese that can help us. Agreed? Agreed. Hummer nodded his head. And I won't ruin the rest of the day with more negative feelings. He paused to think for a moment. There's a lot I need to talk about, figure out. And I'll be here whenever you need me, One Leg replied with a head nod. Probably just with a nod. Satisfied with the new arrangement, Hummer started to relax. They both did. Neither realized how tense they had been, and it felt nice to putt around for a bit, the geese catching their attention again. This time One Leg went over to greet them. Sounds like a challenge, JasmoColors. Probably Con. Taz, yeah. Less than 3 minutes left in this sprint. Did I put it in here? I did. Welcome, welcome, an older female goose greeted them. You're new here. If there's anything we can help you with, let us know. She smiled brightly with her eyes, warmth exuding with her words. You wouldn't happen to be flying south for winter, would you? One Leg asked. He had heard from other flocks that some geese never left their residence because the weather was nice year-round. Oh, we don't. I'm sorry. Did you get separated from your flock? She swam close to One Leg, nearly twice his size. A storm, he explained. We've been going flock to flock, trying to meet up with our own again. She nodded in a sad manner, guiding the smaller goose over to the shore. We don't migrate, but others will be along that do, she reassured them. They've been coming and going for quite some time now. I'm sure there are still a few flocks due to arrive in the next few days. You are more than welcome to stay here with us if you like. Thanks, One Leg nodded. We'll probably do that. We've been flying a lot. The female smiled oddly at him, as if she was confused as to who he was talking about. At least we have a safe place to stay, Hummer offered. Hummer offered from beneath his friend's feathers. One Leg agreed. Okay. No fill. Okay. Got about a minute or so left, and I might stop there. Let's stop there. You're referring to the tree rats. Yes. At least the cats are well fed, Wordwin. If that is what they actually do with them. What is... Oh, I see. Okay. Oh, weird. I didn't know that. Neat. Neat. Finding things out. 30 seconds. I'll not tap the microphone. I apologize. In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Time's up.
Time's up, and that is the last sprint for me for today. And actually, I'm gonna call it for the day as well. Been a wonderful, wonderful day, making a lot of progress getting through this first reading and editing thing. I will be back on Monday, like for the rest of November during the work week, Monday through Friday. I will still be holding group word sprints like this, and I'll also be editing my story. I'll also be popping in other people's streams as much as possible to help cheer them on and get that nano goal down. Tech Angel, so close. So close. How much did you need? I don't know, Wordwin. I don't know. Anyways, thank you everybody for watching. I greatly appreciate it, especially you lurkers in there. Hope you guys got a lot of sprinting good and done in there. If you are new here and you would like to know when I go live, you can follow me on Twitch and on Twitter at JasmoColors, and I will catch you guys all next time.